And we're live.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with episode 13 of Splat. There are some amazing things happening in the Splatoon community worldwide, but we'll get to those. First off, before anything here, I want to introduce everybody here first. First, we have on the right corner, Reborn, one of the more known Splatoon analysts out there with, great mentality for the game, great philosophies for the game. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk some Splatoon.
Awesome. Happy to hear it. Also here, we have Omazen, who is your staff and production for CCA, one of the really cool Splatoon orgs out there. How are you feeling tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Excited to be here, talk about a lot of the recent events in the scene, of course, and just, have a good time with you all.
Awesome.
Good. I'm really excited here, ready to bring the energy. We're here for the vibes and excited for the topics that we have at hand here, Pastry.
Awesome. And topics we do. There is a whole host of really amazing things happening, not only this weekend, but up in the coming weeks. But first off, we're not pulling any punches here. North American Splatoon League. It's really like one of the first times this happened, right? Reborn, just like having a Splatoon League, but not just for Japan, but for, the North America, for the Western region.
Yeah, I've had about like 12 different ideas on what they can do with it, how they're going to kind of set it up, what the format's going to be like. Is it going to include any kind of prize pool? A lot of thoughts going through my head, but very, very excited.
Oh, would you be able to share like one of those like potential routes they could take?
So, I think because I know that like the Splatoon Raiders game comes out later this year, so I wonder if they're gonna tie in a lot of. I don't know if they would be playing it necessarily. Maybe toward the end, I have no idea. But it could be some kind of just marketing for Splatoon Raiders. The Switch 2's come out, so another great time to push the kind of flagship online game for Nintendo. I thought about it in terms of. Is it going to be more competitive focus, which I would imagine so, especially from the footage in the trailer. But is there a world where they take it as like a content creator side of things, where there's a lot of really big Splatoon content creators? And is it a little bit more, I don't think casual is the right word, but maybe a little bit less traditional than what we would expect from it. But I think the main thing, because it being a league, I think the expectation there is that it would be longer than, the traditional tournaments that we see that usually go on for about a weekend, or maybe it's like 2 weekends. I'd imagine it's a little bit longer stretched.
Great points around the board. This with Splatoon Raiders, it definitely is that, hey, the single player is getting more action, more production. Let's whip up the multiplayer as well. That's a solid point there. Fufu, I'm wondering, when it comes to how the league could be structured, like if it's maybe gonna go in maybe like a Japan Koshien route where it's like each region has its own qualifier, that kind of thing, or maybe something completely different. What's your thoughts on how it could go?
It really can go anyway. It's a very different. It's like Reborn said, it's very different from what we've had in the past because we've had a lot of singular tournaments. This is a league. It could be anyway, really. Are we going to go the Ludi route where we're going to have those multiple week layouts? The CCA route? How are these storylines going to come out? It's just such a new format for Nintendo themselves to bring out. In terms of just the isolated sphere of Nintendo, it really can go anyway, if I'm being honest. It's a surprise box.
Yeah, really fair point. There's so many routes. It's almost like, in a way, I'm overwhelming to think of, because like it could just be the best storyline of all time, but it could also be like, hey, let's do Rainmaker Mincemeat or something like that. Like, so a lot of question marks there. But also, almost, I'm wondering, as someone that is part of production for CCA, you see a lot of upcoming talent for sure. How do you feel like the new buds, what they're going to think? Are they going to be more driven by this league now existing? Is it going to be like about the same? What's your prediction?
I mean, I think it's going to attract a lot of new talent at the end of the day, because when it comes to the official tournaments that Nintendo's done in the past, like the Turf War tourneys, right? Or just even some of their bigger events like those World Championship tournaments they've done in the past, I think it's always drawn a lot of attention and eyes from the casual base of the scene, and also just people who really like to grind solo. Maybe they give a shot at some of those tourneys when they are a bit more open and available to them. But I think just having a more, official means of being able to interact with competitive is going to be really powerful for a lot of people as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of new faces, a lot of new potential, really big, just powerhouse teams that could break into the scene.
Love that. I love that. That's a great point. The casual community is way, way larger than the competitive one at the end of the day. With pretty much most games are going to be like that, especially something that by Nintendo, frankly. But you brought up an interesting point there about the potential for teams. I'm wondering, Reborn at the top end, what kind of potential teams could we see? I've heard some Buddy talk about, on Blue Sky or Twitter about this team could really take it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we kind of have an interesting distribution of skill level for kind of that higher end of the scene, especially in North America. I would imagine probably some kind of FT win team and Moonlight really fighting for kind of that top tier. If I get some other players that aren't NA, please correct me, but I imagine there's definitely a lot of teams that at the top end, there's people kind of fighting to kind of win it all. There's a lot of teams that could potentially be qualifying, kind of your weekly tournament grinders and winners, to kind of find that opportunity. And then there's a lot of really good players between your Hypernovas and those other teams that definitely have the opportunity to prove themselves. Even a team like Free Flow, that's the cool thing about this being a league. I think if they really have the opportunity to get a lot of reps against a lot of solid competition, I think it's wide open for any team to really elevate their game throughout the course of a league.
That's such a great point, right? Because it's not just a one-off tournament where it's in a major, no one's gonna really adapt to either FT Win or Moonlight. That would really have a chance of just taking the whole thing, right? Well, I guess Mikuya too, absolutely Mikuya too. But because it is a league, that sort of multi-week format where teams can experiment more, they know more solidly what the exact map list is gonna be. This really could be the opportunity for some teams that are on the verge to become that next team. And omazen, I'm sure you've seen Moonlight, for example, right? Because of course, everyone knows them.
Yeah, true.
But you think at least for CCA, where CCA is also a kind of league type thing, how much improvement have you seen, at least at the very extreme end, when it comes to players that enter the CCA as really new to comp, but then they come out like monsters? Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, that does happen for sure. I think a thing with the CCA is that you have quite a few players, especially nowadays within the past year or so, that have gradually transitioned, or their team has even transitioned as a whole, to also interacting more with just general competitive tourneys like your SOSs, your low inks, or even larger ones, right, like Super Jump. And quite a few of those teams have been able to find a lot of success in doing that. The big one that always comes to mind that gets thrown around is, I believe, Big Fat Sea Cows. They started off as originally, I think, around a Division 4 CCA team, and then they built their way up from that kind of middle of the pack type division in CCA to eventually being a contender for Division 1 at CCA, even winning one of the Division 1 titles for CCA. And
Wow.
they currently are like around Division 2 or 3 roughly in Ludi as of the past season, I believe. So they've had quite a lot of success. There's also quite a few other players in the CCA who have been able to have similar trajectories, or whether it's just a player or even the team as a whole. And I think that's been a really good benefit and something that's really helped just introduce a lot of new people to the game, to a more competitive and serious environment too. Over time, they're kind of allowed to take their time, go through the motions, but still be in a truly competitive environment. And I think that this new league from Nintendo may be able to fill a similar niche for just a wider audience outside of just the collegiate sphere too.
Great point. I would imagine one of Splatoon's audience is, like not in college. So that's a fair point too. This really could be that bridge that, one of the biggest talks, right? For example, one of the biggest talks is that the scene outside of Japan isn't that high. But if this league can bring a lot of that attention, especially that casual attention, into that more competitive light, that could really be that bridge we're looking for. Fufu, I'm wondering, as someone that's like commentated, at various events like that, what do you expect from the production and from the staff end? Because do you think like some of these players that start to get into competitive, start to get a feel for that, could they potentially go that more production route, that more commentary route, and contribute to the scene in that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't necessarily have to be an expert at the game, especially to commentate, show your love for the game. There's different forms of way to show love to the game, and I do think production is one of them. Honestly, shout out to our production who make everything run behind the scenes. I'm also expecting you were asking about the production for Nintendo events. Their production tends to be really solid, and I'm not expecting any less. Again, production quality can be crazy. Anyone that was looking at the SWS that happened recently, production top tier, and I would really like to see that carry on to Nintendo's events as well, which they have. Let me be clear, they have, and it's just nice to see that level of production. And I'm also hoping to see some new commentator faces as well with the league coming up. Having a larger set of casters would be really, really cool, in my personal opinion. There's been a lot of casters coming up. Again, Hammy's out there. Sig is also really solid. Brave is also really good too. Just to name a couple that I've really enjoyed listening to. I would really love to see just new faces out there in the commentator sphere, and even better from Nintendo.
Oh, I do want to ask about that a bit further, especially like on that commentary end where, a lot of players don't think about the commentary. Like they kind of just see like, oh, there's two commentators, cool. But it's like, what is it? what is it like, commentating with someone that, is either like newer to that spectrum or just like completely new? It's like, this is the first time I've ever casted anything, and I'm casting like, I don't know, like a LAN or like a new weekly or something like that.
It's very interesting. It's very fun. If the person I almost said player. If the person has like a lot of charisma, usually who needs a tutorial, who needs an introduction, go for it. If you know about the game, even better. It's gradual. It's like it'll start off a little bit rough, but as people get comfortable on the mic, it flows into place. Everything falls into place. They'll find the style that they naturally shift into commentary. You guys have heard color play by play. Everyone kind of tends to follow the way they want to go. It's a little weird to explain because there's not necessarily any set. It just depends. Commentary is, for lack of better term, not that hard to get into. Like, to do the action of commentating, it's just really a matter of actually getting into the servers that allow you to cast these tournaments is really maybe the biggest hurdle over the actual commentary itself.
Interesting. It does sound like there's a lot of like creativity to it, not necessarily like a very set rigged up structure type of thing.
Yeah,
that's cool. Reborn, as someone that's done a lot of the a lot of analysis for the scene, like really one of the big innovators when it comes to like VOD reviewing, just VOD reviewing the scene in general. what do you think they're going to do potentially, like when it comes to the analysis and for this Splatoon League? Like, do you think they're going to have like like an analyst desk like we see in some other games? Think like they may not go that route. Like, do you have any thoughts when it comes to that kind of thing?
I mean, I'm waiting for my phone call. No, I'm kidding. I think for the most part, they may have some analysis during. I could totally see, again, especially with this being a league being stretched out a little bit longer. I wouldn't be surprised if they had if they tapped into like making smaller YouTube videos to promote different parts of the game. I follow a lot of like the League of Legends esports and everything, and they'll have like top 10 plays. They'll have like big moments. Sometimes they'll have really in-depth dissections of important moments or like a really standout play during a match. And, I would love to see that. I don't know how much Nintendo will tap into that, but anything that they do kind of outside of just the games, at least for me personally as a spectator, I always really appreciate it. Especially like, I forgot what event it was, but like when they did like the in-person interviews with the teams, I'm just remembering like some meme around like crab. It's been so long that I totally forgot, but someone mentioning their favorite special was a crab, and it was the whole thing. So I'm hoping for it being a little bit fun and like y'all are saying, really an opportunity to broaden the reach and the impact of the competitive scene.
Love that here. Love that. That's a great point. The content that's not just tournament VOD or grand finals cut of tournament VOD. That really is an amazing chance to show the casual scene that's maybe not following Kyo on Twitch or watching Chara on YouTube. Like, hey, these players, there's a lot more to them than just clicking the buttons on the map. Like, I do actually remember that crowd. It's like, what special is your favorite? It's like crab ticket. It's like, why? It's like, I just really like the crab. It was really funny at the time. It was extremely funny. If we could have, yeah.
If I could add on to that, adding connections to the for my latest fixation of F1, like when it blew up, they were connecting the audience, like not less emotional, just like, oh, these people are just like us. And I think having that sense of, oh, these players are not just players, they're people and they have silly moments too, as a connecting factor is definitely going to help broaden the reach of Splatoon. And like you said, those interviews, we need more of those. We need more silly shenanigans because it's literally free like publicity, free advertising.
Great point. Actually, I don't follow Formula One too often, but that is an interesting point. Is it like that's how they like it got more popular, or is it like?
If I recall correctly, this is a very new thing for me, by the way. I could be wrong. When the franchise, whatever it's called, was bought out, it was an advertising agency that bought them, and they're like, great, let them record in the back. Let them do what they want. Let them post about their drivers. Let the people connect with them as people. Boom, profit. That's literally what it was. I could be, don't exactly quote me on that. That's like the gist.
Well, I love that idea. Omazen, I'm curious now. For things like the Collegiate League or your the other like original message deleted. When it comes to the content and the player, broadening out and showing like not just their gameplay, like how much work has CCA or OMD been able to do in that standpoint? Has it helped?
Ooh, just like you mean showcasing kind of that storyline almost?
Yeah, like the storyline, the personalities, all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think with at least CCA in particular, we've done a really good job of it. We have quite a few different projects that we've been facilitating and working on the past several years, like just documenting even like the growth of the scene and how many teams are in it and like how certain schools, just independent teams and clubs are doing. But we've also been able to do quite a few different interviews with actual teams as well. I think like a little bit over 30 of the different CCA teams over the past 2 or so years we've had interviews with, and a lot of those have like served as time capsules almost. Even like, you know, we're talking about this crab tank bit from I think that was the Nintendo Live tournament from 2023, I want to say. We're talking about that crab tank bit from that tourney, but at the end of the day, that's like a time capsule moment. Like, so many things in the meta have shifted, so many different like evolutions of these players' just lives and stories as in competitive and outside of it have changed and grown. Like it's kind of just like a little bit of a picture, a little capture of time right there. And I think it's really exciting to think about what could be done in the future. I hope that there is good innovation on Nintendo's side, whether they try to do some sort of team highlight trailer or they maybe do just an interview with a handful of players or teams. I think that would be cute. But I think this also serves as a really good opportunity for the players themselves to also, you know, just use it as an opportunity to make content. We talked about it with Ludi in the past, where when Ludi was starting up at the beginning of the year, that players should maybe consider, oh, now's your time to farm content. But with the Nintendo League, I don't know, maybe the stakes are going to be higher. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be like, at least we could go like too extreme, right? Like if someone wins the North American League and they're making content of their journey that whole entire way there, that's gonna be interesting. Like I would want to watch that. Like I would watch the heck out of that. It's like North America is not an easy league to win. It's actually not an easy league, but not an easy region to win. And it's very, very talented players in them. That's a great point though. Like that it does kind of parallel Wuti in that sense, where it's like if someone searched this up right now, like Wuti Splatoon week, not even week number, just week, there's gonna be so many bots that show up because of that content push. I do want to go a little bit back to the list of teams that could potentially take the whole entire thing, or at least the sort of theory crafts. There's a lot of pickup culture still at that top end. Like we do have M2 and Moon, like those two are like locked in, but like Hybridnova too. But like past that, there are a lot of question marks here. One of them being, you know, that 5K, technically 5.6K XP Ghost in Jordan. Something that Jordan has played a lot with, right, is Gray and you for PXG. But you know, Jordan, Goss, what kind of players do you think potentially could complement those players, assuming that they play together?
I would imagine, truthfully, they feel like a type of team where you could probably just get someone that's talented, kind of with their roles, probably having some kind of support, or someone that can kind of fill the gaps of what they're missing. Maybe another Espas player, but I don't know. This is one of those things about just the scene right now. I have kind of this theory / some observations from some of the recent tournaments where there's been this, I don't even know if it's necessarily an adaptation, but I think especially seeing the discrepancy between the West and Japan, the importance of having your support players that are traditionally stay alive, paint for specials, you know, that kind of supporty role, them being demanded to have to be a little bit more aggressive, really put themselves in the line of fire, sometimes have to make plays themselves. So truthfully, I think it's one of the benefits within the community of just having like eights and everything is I think that there's definitely an opportunity for anyone to kind of slide into that role. But behind the scenes, I'm not totally sure what's happening, but definitely excited to see how a lot of these kind of teams and everything stack up.
Yeah, and that's fair. There's really so many opportunities for pickups, potentially static teams too, but like a lot of the pickups, and that's a great point. The eights are a great opportunity for everyone to get better individually, but when it comes to creating this is our team and this is our play style, not the best. So there definitely is a lot of variance on what could be there, honestly. Fufu, I'm wondering, at least from a commentary as seeing the how the chat responds or how the viewers respond when there's a pickup versus a static team, like something like, I don't know, like Big Fat Sea Cows, like we talked about, for example, like that's a team. But then like Voy Lacte, that's a pickup. It's really no players on that pickup, like Q, Jared, like amazing players, really strong players, but not necessarily a team. How have you noticed the viewers react to that difference?
It's very interesting. It depends once the rosters are shown. It's usually some individual players are going to be a lot more well known, and obviously that's going to shift the reactions of chat here and there. If I'm being honest, a lot of reactions in chat actually don't stem from the players that are playing, unless it is like two teams that have a storyline already, especially up in the top leagues of just, oh crap, this team is fighting this team. Guys, lock in. It really can actually be anyone. Lock in. Or when things get tight. That is usually the most you're getting out of chat, when things get tight or when it's about to be the upset of the century. The only time that things matters is when it's going to be an upset or just something insane is happening on screen. It's usually when we get that audience reaction. So yeah, building those storylines is important, is what I'm also trying to say.
Makes sense. Definitely the chance to do it in the NA League. Now, I wanna pivot out of the specifically this league. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be crazy. But speaking of crazy, there are some really great events that have happened here. One of the biggest ones that, and I'm a huge fan of this, is In the Zone. And of course, well, I mean, a lot of people should be fans of In the Zone. It's our major. But specifically, I noticed that the turnout when it comes to the teams was a lot higher than usual. Omazen, could you comment on potentially like why this could be an In the Zone that more of the teams signed up for compared to usual?
Yeah, I mean, In the Zone has always been a big attractor for, your high level teams, your top level teams, right? Like you're going to frequently see a lot of the like top 10 Western teams in the zone, if not every single one of them. But I think what's been really interesting to see lately, especially the past couple months, I think partly because of stuff like the Splat World Series, but also the resurgence of Super Jump, and also there being multiple Super Jumps announced as well, is that In the Zone has kind of been an opportunity for some mid-level teams, some like upper low level teams, people around that sort of general range, to just get experience and exposure to what like the peak of competitive is, because Sendu has really enabled a lot of just people to more quickly intermingle with each other, I think, via the platform. And if you have a chance to go up against, Milky Way featuring Gray, like, why wouldn't you take that opportunity, right? You might be able to get some good practice out of it. Even if you get stomped horribly, you can still like take notes and have those, those set experiences to be like, okay, this is what we could have done better. This is something that we could maybe take away from what they did to our own gameplay and try to apply that yourself too. So I think that's where a lot of that is partly coming from. But I think that there's just like a really big push in general from a lot of teams and players in the Western side of the scene to try to just do their best and really try to get to the top as quickly as they can. Like, I think that also kind of shows itself really well through the recent Plus server voting. I know that there's been a lot of discussions around that for a variety of different topics, but in particular, I think this was a record voting session or voting period, where there were like over or around 150 players that were suggested, I think. I might be wrong on that number, slightly off, but it was a very large amount of people that were trying to take that next step in their comp career, right? That thought that they had enough of a reason to jump to that next level. So I think that it's just going to become even more dramatic, especially with the Nintendo League on the horizon.
That's a great point. The idea of players trying to push themselves further, like usually there's that kind of like divide, I would say, of like well, at least the story of the divide, whereas like players in Willing, they're like, oh, well, they don't want to fight, Lobster Melon, whatever the heck, Keo plus Lobster pickup that would never happen ever, but some kind of amalgamation of top players to get 5,000 zeroed. But it sounds like a lot of players are starting to say, okay, that could happen, but I still want to learn from it, and it might not be as bad as it seems. That is interesting there. Reborn, in your studies and like analysis and all that, we see like just seeing the players and seeing what their energy is like. Have you noticed that kind of mentality shift too, where it's like more players are hungry to just fight the best teams, even if it means they get destroyed?
I think it's especially after kind of SWS. I think there has been kind of a bit of excitement. Also with like the upcoming league stuff, who knows how many teams, which includes how many players would end up in that. There could be +3, or maybe even people that are outside of that plus server that could potentially have the opportunity to qualify. So yeah, I think it's really a time in the scene where to some extent we're kind of re-evaluating ourselves, how we go about practicing, how we go about more pickup side versus forming teams. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of really standout players, especially as you go through, the +2s, +3s that, I think of a player like Sully, who's a goated Squiffer player, always has like the most insane clips. And it's like, there's these players that exist out there that I think could fit super nicely on any kind of top team, or any just, whatever higher level team that has a spot available to them. So yeah, I think now, especially with all of the events kind of more organically within the community, as well as cool stuff happening from Nintendo and partnerships with Area Cup, really an opportunity. If people wanted to have kind of that breakout opportunity, I think now is really the time to push for that.
That would definitely explain the. Oh, Fufi, did you have to that?
Yeah, sorry, I was a little quiet on that one. No, yeah, and like I like a lot of what you said as well, because it's also nurturing our own community. The more people that have access to higher level things, the better. I do still think Pluses still has that aspect of popularity to it, or like you got to be visible somewhere, if that makes sense still. However, I do like the fact that more people are coming in. The more people that we can get resources to get to the top, the better. The more top players that we can have, the better. We need more than just our top 10 players, top 16 players up there. Even that's a stretch. We need more, is what I'm trying to say. So I think with the league, the SWS, and everything happening, it's just those opportunities are rising. And I think if we continue that up, we're going to be looking good.
Nice. That's the great points. Great points to with more plus suggests than ever. A lot more people are going to have strong feelings about potentially the result they get, or the results that other gets, which is like totally fair in itself. That is still a good point though, that these private servers they do offer a skill level that you can't just find out of public events sometimes, or if you can't find in public events, it's usually like 1 or 2 rounds versus. You could potentially like scrim in +1 for like to have a pickup made of +1 members, and then do well in a tournament that day after. Like, there is a great opportunity, and with more players in plus ever, that's very, very exciting. I do want to, at least since we're talking about plus, I do want to pivot to this a little bit before we talk about more of the in zone sets here. But some of these +1 players, +2 players are really, really cool this time around. Gotta bring up, like, for example, we did bring up just now someone that hit +2 is solely in that Squiffer, but how many, I wonder how many, like, Reborn, how many new upsets can we see now there's so many players that have access to this opportunity?
Ooh, truthfully, especially when it comes to having formats like Sindo Q finals and everything, there's such kind of an upwelling of different players that have an opportunity to really make something happen. And I know on some of the lower, like kind of +3, +2 levels, definitely teams that have existed that have been really kind of surprised of their rise. I think like last season, a team like, I believe it was Artifice, seeing a player like Fox, going through CCA like you were talking about, Oma, qualifying and I think was +2 at the time, and really just kind of skyrocketing. So I think as long as people have the opportunity, like if they really kind of push themselves, I truthfully think that I think we're waiting for that next kind of like standout team. I just think that it's up for anyone to take. Moonlight's kind of been pushing from the top end of things, again from the everyone else fighting. I truthfully think anyone that has the drive and can find a group of players that they really gel with, I think they have definite opportunities. Kind of looking at the list, I see some members of Frutella getting into +1. I'm not super keen on all of the EU players, but obviously they've been having some standout results, so to be expected. I know that like Poli, I don't, maybe, hopefully I'm not pronouncing that wrong. I know that they've been playing some, I don't know if it's like 8s or scrims, but I know that they've been playing like with Kyo and everything, just for, like random opportunities. So there's definitely, I think it's kind of a contentious part of the community, kind of like Fufu was mentioning, but I think there are opportunities from kind of the top level where they're bringing in right now. I think it's almost like a drip feed of kind of up and coming, like really cracked players, them getting opportunities to play with these best teams. I would imagine someone like Jordan was kind of like that. I don't know Jordan's story fully, but I know that they're at least relatively new to the competitive scene, or at least top level results playing with the likes of Gray and Goss and everyone. So over the years, there's only so much time, so many tournaments. So I think hopefully that drip feed will come through and flow a little bit better. But no, I think there's a lot of good stuff happening, and I'm sure there's plenty of kind of surprise stories from someone like myself that is really focused on like the highest level of competition, and seeing people just kind of blast through that kind of weekly side and starting to make a name for themselves in the major tournaments.
Great point. There's the talent. Is this truly a time for talent to boom? This is our spring. It might be summer right now. It's summer turning to fall, but for at least the Splatoon community, it's feeling like it's the spring, especially at that top end where like maybe it's not like 1,000 new suggester getting in one season, but like it's definitely on the up and end. But I do want to talk at least a little bit more about in the zone here, and specifically, there's one player that is quite well known that hasn't done a tournament in a while, that is finally back in the rhythm potentially in Chara, playing with a double slider composition. Now, slider is a special that definitely baits a lot of reactions out from pretty much all of the community. Fufu, I'm wondering, at least from the viewer standpoint, how did they feel about slider generally? Like, what do you see? Is it like they're like, oh, sliders, like I love this special with Shark? Like, what's the vibe?
From someone who was actually casting the sets for In the Zone when these were happening, funnily enough, it was interesting. It's like, these guys are good players, so it's not just zone cheese. Sometimes there was cheesing, but there was cheesing with strategy. It wasn't just throw the reef slider, die. It's throw the reef slider, maybe kill someone, we can go back to our teammates. It was so interesting to see it be used outside of, oh, it's just a cheese special. And I think that says a lot. And the fact that they stuck through it, they were completely stress testing the reef slider comp as well. So I have a lot of respect for just seeing that through all the way to the end.
That's a good point. That willingness to just experiment, even at like a top level tournament like this, is truly honestly quite cool. Frankly, I love it. But
Yeah.
omazen, I'm wondering something I hear a lot about the. Actually, you finished with it.
Oh no, go on, go. You're good. You're good.
But omazen, I'm wondering something I hear a lot about the sort of beginner-ish to like approaching mid-level. I would hear a lot about Reef Slider and specifically Dreadringer being really popular because of a certain someone on the screen. How much in your experience have you seen players like opt for the slider at this level, or opt for Dreadringer in general? Like, granted, it's a great weapon now. It's seen as a great weapon now, but before that, was there really like a Pro Char virus at that level?
I'm not sure if virus is the right way to put it, or necessarily the word I would use, but I think ProChara definitely popularized it and helped bring a few more eyes to it than it maybe otherwise would have. And by extension, of course, because for the longest time, it was kind of just, the Reef Slider that was attached to that weapon anyways. But no, I think Reef Slider has had a lot of an up and up in general in the scene. I think at a lower level, it's kind of just a test weapon for a lot of different teams, whether it's like an FTIU or a low ink. I frequently see whenever I watch like a friend play in one of those tourneys that the teams that typically kind of find themselves on top more often than not have some sort of Reef Slider at their disposal that can just completely punish and flush their opponents out of either the zone, away from the Rainmaker, just really take up such a massive amount of space. And seeing top level players like Chara and Omega and their whole crew they had that weekend was really fun, because I think that double Reef Slider in particular is a really fascinating combo, and being able to see it stress test to its absolute limits, like Fufu was saying a little bit ago, was just really entertaining. And honestly, I think what the underrated piece that kind of keeps everything glued together in that comp too is the bubble. I'm a decav main myself, so I'm probably a little bit biased in that take because I love my bubbles, but it's really cool to see how the teams choose to work around that, and then also by extension of that the pen and how they utilize soda in certain contexts. You can get so much value out of just grabbing that soda and just going for your Reef Slide, jumping back right after you're out of your animation. And I mean, quite a few top players probably already know that, but to some of the lower level players in the audience, maybe you don't necessarily know that. So when you go into FTIU next time, maybe keep in mind what you might be about to run into.
It's a great point. I love that you catered some potentially picks we see at that level, or some strategies we see at that level, not just thinking about the top end, but also if someone experiences competitive and they may not be the best of the best player right out the bat, they're not 5 billion XP or something like that. What are they gonna see? That's a good point there.
Yeah, and I do think with kind of like Carol talking about with double Reef Slider, I think it goes in pairs really well with Cooler, and I think specifically, the Cooler meta itself, it's been here for, I don't even know, maybe a year at this point, but there's kind of been over the last couple of months this more of an expectation to utilize the quick super jump and getting out of situations, and weapons like Reef Slider that are able to, retake a zone, or like Oma saying, just flush out a team and being able to return safely back to your team. The interesting thing that you see with double Reef Slider is the chip damage, especially because Charo will run a main, maybe a little bit more of the special power up, and the actual AoE that you get, I think it's 60 damage or so, is kind of insane. So having two of those, there's a lot of it feels like cheesy kills. I still think it's legit, but at the same time, I think people still need to experience getting double chipped out by two different Reef Sliders. I think to some degree, I've seen it kind of catch people off guard. So it's been a really fun adaptation. I think I like that Oma brought up bubble, because I've seen a lot of experimentation of even double bubble weapons like decav, weapons like mini, weapons like dualies. There's a lot of weapons that you'll see traditionally in the meta that, with all of these added kits where we're at the game right now, I think the game kind of gets solved the more that we play. But I think with all of the weapons that we've seen, especially with the new kind of kits that came through recently, I think now there's been a lot of experimentation, and we're in a pretty good spot to be able to experiment with a lot of these kits that traditionally, maybe we would have written them off earlier on, but really seeing them have a place even in like the meta and top level.
It's, if I can add on to that, it's also just a lot of, I think people are also realizing that a lot of weapons are not bound to the roles, or the quote unquote roles as well. Some weapons can be flexed around to fit what you need for comps as well, as another thing. And you were talking about cooler. I need to talk about that, because for the longest time I had a beef with it because it was being used as a band-aid for so long of its like uptime. It's like, now that people are starting to see its usefulness outside of the quick respawn, it's like hallelujah. And also realizing that some comps don't play with cooler. During the SWS is Samurai Cat, no cooler. They're like, we play slow enough, we don't need it, and they nearly won that. So I think it's very interesting to think about cooler, where it's used, what is the most you can get out of cooler, and whether it's actually worth running in the comp in the first place, which is always interesting to think about.
I think one other thing I want to add on to that too is just like, as an extension of that, typically when we do see cooler, we see pen, right? That's typically the go-to for everyone. You get so much like potential splat pressure, you get so much potential paint as well, and you get really quick coolers on top of it. It's the perfect cooler weapon practically. But what Splat World Series also showed us is that E-Leader still works, and you can be an absolute menace with it. And there's been a resurgence of E-Leader in just comp in general. Like, I go in the X, and like ever since SWS, I've been seeing like a leader every few games, whereas before that I would very rarely see one. And it has like really changed so much how I have to play the game, and also like how I see other people starting to change the way they play the game too. Because back in Splatoon 2 days, for those of you who were around back then, E-Leader was very similarly a menace. It was one of the worst, most painful things you could go into. And now we're seeing that yet again, getting toyed around with as a concept and an idea. So I'm interested to see where the scene goes with any of that. But yeah, I just had to bring that up after the cooler mention.
I need to add on to that, to leader. One more thing about leader, because okay, first off, look at that thing and tell me.
Whoa!
Oh, yeah. Oh, you got the big one.
That tells you anything of how I feel about leader. Thank you, Ren. That was a gift. So something I want to know about Samurai Cat, it wasn't just the fact that they were not running leader. It was the fact that they figured out, oh, you don't just bring that thing and just run like normal. No, they all played around the leader. I have some words, and you're gonna have to stop me in a second, because it's good. You're gonna have to stop me. Leader is a lost art. One-shot backlines are a lost art. Coolerless backlines are a damn lost art, and I stand by it, because like, with cooler being used as a band-aid, it's just like, hey fellas, we can throw people out into the open and feed them into a leader. What are they gonna do? They're always gonna run into cover. Just shoot them. 5-head, like, just shoot them. What are they gonna do? And I feel like if people just open their eyes and realize that not every comp functions the same. I talk about this in the one-shot side, because that's my pookie. That's where I'm at. But I think that goes with just a lot of comps in general. It's not, the game is not one-dimensional. And I think once people start realizing that, profit.
Yeah, I definitely think that E-Leader, if there's one way for everyone that feels slighted by maybe the plus system or by not making it into the top level, if there's one way that you want to revolt, you will irritate a lot of top players playing E-Leader. I'll tell you what. Seeing it succeed in SWS in some recent area cups, it's demanding. I know a lot of people like to meme that you're just kind of like, oh, stand still, I'm in one position. You watch the movement and you watch the way that these players play, the types of shots that they have to hit. To me, I always have like this duality with E-Leader where part of me wishes that it didn't exist in the game, but having teamed with someone that played a lot of E-Leader and just seeing it, especially from a spectator perspective, I think it's really interesting. And like y'all are saying, I think it's super underexplored.
It's its own game. Leader literally is its own game. It does not necessarily play by the rules of Splatoon. That's what makes it such an interesting weapon. Also, you can't miss. If you miss, you're cooked. So it's so interesting. I love Leader.
Heck yeah, that's what's huge. You know, at the end of the day, like weapons are cool for, right? It gives a certain play style, it has a certain aesthetic to it, the combination. Like omazen loving Mint, you loving Weezer, like that's what it's for at the end. It's great. There is definitely a lot of that experimentation. It's definitely been on an uptick, a lot more openness to trying ideas. Like, and definitely Samurai Cats and having that leader is a great point for it. I want to also highlight another in the zone set here that was actually, you could argue this was an upset, but you know, like Shiny was on the other team and like Shiny has been killing it on lands. But it's like you could argue like maybe an upset, maybe not an upset, but there was a pickup that, you know, played against Free Flow, one of the groups that qualified for Splat World Series, and you know they were able to take it. They were able to take a 2-1, and neither side I would say really had a standard composition. The side that won here in this pickup called quote Sleepy will throw hands in zone end quote had a double Splatling support with composition. Well, Free Flow, as they are known for having stuff like that custom last year, like. And also Edit, which Edit, of course, is an amazing weapon. It's arguably meta in a way, but isn't seen that often. Reborn, what do you think about seeing these comps on paper? Like, what's really are these something that could win at the tip of the top, or like, what could potentially be their intentions behind these?
Yeah, I think that, truthfully, I've always been of the mentality that even though like we have, you know, millions of tier lists around weapons, I truthfully think that Splatoon is relatively well balanced at the end of the day. I truthfully feel, especially with it being a 4v4 game, like you can slot in, if you have a reason or a purpose to run specific weapons, you can definitely slot those in. I think definitely there's been a bigger push for experimentation, seeing these, you know, there's always this mentality of, oh, well, if it works in Japan, okay, now it's okay for us to start trying it out, kind of vibe. Which, you know, should it be that way? You know, probably not. We probably should be a little bit more comfortable with kind of pushing that within our own scene. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to see them, and in some ways, I don't necessarily expect it, because we almost have gotten to this point of a relatively stable meta, pin, slosher, decav, splash, you know, a little slight deviations, adding in like an S-blast or dualies. But now, again, seeing these bigger tournaments, seeing something like E-Leader win, seeing Mint, well, I guess Mint's always been successful, but we just don't have a lot of Mint players. There's like Omega and Oma. So maybe if your name starts with O, maybe pick up Mint. But no, I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I think for the players, like a Synapse that plays like a dualies, you know, seeing that get a little bit more recognition, maybe we get more comfortable. Maybe we see Moonlight bring out the E-Leader now that we've, you know, it's going to take time for especially the top teams that are competing for weekly tournaments, or, you know, these big tournaments that are happening frequently. We'll see that, like, it's going to take some time for them to experiment and really kind of gel, but I hope that we do continue to see it. I know that with a lot of coaching and stuff that I've done at low level, there's been this level of experimentation that's been happening. So I imagine everyone that's kind of come up in competitive, I imagine they all probably have a backstory of, oh man, I used to be like, you know, like with Chara being like a umbrella player, or, you know, maybe being like a leader player, having these weapons in their back pocket that maybe might be like their Pookie, as as we were saying with Rita before. But one of those things that now that we're kind of, our brains are getting a little bit more comfortable with kind of pushing the envelope with a more variety of weapons, maybe we start seeing, those kind of passion weapons that people played earlier on in their careers. Maybe we start seeing more of those. So am I surprised? A little bit, but again, I think there's a very beautiful time in competitive Splatoon that we're in right now, and I imagine that will continue forward. And I would, if you ask me now, some of these comps are surprising. If you ask me in about a month or two, hopefully that will be more and more kind of accepted and the expectation.
I want to add on to that because you're talking a lot about experimentation, and I think it's very funny that these specific set of players are brought up, specifically Shiny and Pika, because I've had the opportunity to talk to them outside of everything, and those two are thinkers. I think that's the great thing about these players. They're not afraid to deviate from what is the usual. But more specifically in terms of direct counterplay, in the last set against Free Flow, I had the chance to talk to Shiny about this. They're like, okay, they have a tent. Clearly this isn't working. So they just said, screw it, played double splatling and played a specific counter pick against the enemy team. And I think seeing a lot more thinkers like that think, okay, well, this isn't, usually played, but this is what is most likely going to work in the moment. Seeing a lot more of that and people not just sticking to the meta because it's good because it's convenient, but it's what works. We need more thinkers is what I'm trying to say. Getting more thinkers on the Splatoon side of things is just, it's good to have. And that's why I really like those players, which is crazy that Shiny missed +2, by the way, because they're absolutely insane. What are you doing, crazy, guys? Lock in. I was like, lock in. Because they're actually insane.
Yeah, I think... Oh, go ahead, Emma.
Sorry. I just wanted to bounce off that a little bit with a kind of extension of your point. But I think like what's also been talked about a little bit in the wider scene is that a lot of people have just really gotten way too comfortable with their default comfort picks, right? There's a lot less experimentation with certain folks. And like you just have your one weapon. It's like you're down 2 in a best of 5. And instead of being like, okay, screw it, it's now or never, let's cook a little bit, everyone's just like, well, this is our comp. This is our default comp. We got, I don't know, pen, blaster, sword, shot. Let's just keep going with it. And it didn't work the previous 2 times. It's almost kind of like that unfortunate loop of like insanity, right? Where it's like, is it going to keep working? Are you at least going to play differently? Who knows? But it's a little bit of a, just something that I completely agree with, that I think being a thinker, being someone that can really apply yourself the best you can is a really just huge plus as well.
Yeah. And so that's one thing. I haven't really, I've been more watching and being a spectator than actually competing. As of the 8s craze, that's one thing that I would potentially be, and again, I might be totally off base on this. That is one thing, just kind of seeing like its format and everything that maybe concerns me a little bit is almost this expectation of, oh, well, we need a cooler weapon, and there's the dedicated like pencil player that's in the lobby, or the dedicated, splash or something. There might be less opportunities from that side of things, and I think, like y'all were bringing up, a player like Shiny is just such a great intersection between extremely talented and being that thinker and innovator. I don't even remember who they were playing with, but I remember VOD, like watching a VOD, I don't know if it was tournament or what, but as you're talking through this, I remember watching them play like brine water zones with bamboo and tent, and like Shiny playing like behind tent with bamboo, going for these like early flanks in the beginning of the match, dropping off left side brine water, and just like very just super fun. Like I've been a big proponent of just like really trying to express like the beauty of competitive and the beauty of Splatoon as a game. Part of that is the mechanics and just seeing these incredible mechanical skills, but also that innovation and everything. So I hope that doesn't die out. And kind of, again, as these conversations have been talked through with players like shiny players like Pika, I guess shout out to Cherry Limeade, from their side of things, like it's really great that we have the thinkers and the with the skill to back it up. But I'm hoping that as we kind of talk through, okay, we need more content, we need, more discussion. I'm hoping that there are more opportunities for those thinkers that may have the game plan, but maybe not the execution to go through with it. So again, I think we're in the middle of a bit of a transitional period that I'm really excited for the competitive scene. And I just hope that continues through.
Finding those people that are willing to go in with it. That is us. That is us right now. No, literally. It's also finding people that are willing to break the mold too, because not everyone is gonna want to break that mold. We are thinkers. I love that image. Damn. Yeah, that's good. We all just gotta hit the pose. We all just gotta. Don't let me do it by myself. Do it with me, damn it.
I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm not. But
yes. This is unserious.
Reward is above thinking.
Nah, didn't they do like the fist, like the sculpture? Do we need to?
How does it look like? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Absolutely incredible. Chat, if you're out there, be a thinker. Be more like shiny. Be more like Pika.
Be a thinker. Literally, don't write things off because they're not meta. Literally. Two of the players that are still that are to my anchors, my poor anchors that have had to play pen and got stuck in jail. Find a squad that will work with you. Find thinkers, break the mold. We learned the rules of the game, and now it's time to break them. It's literally time to break the rules. So start breaking them because now's the time. Literally.
I love it. I love the very solid points about how experimenting can really like trying something that the opponents don't expect that could really save us a tournament set, not just like walking the same thing, but also just how a lot of strategies are really viable in this game and the ability to not necessarily catch someone off guard, which that can be part of it, but really find what is actually the best compared to what's seen as the best. That's something that can only be done with a lot of experimentation.
I do think that a lot of the experimental comps that we've been seeing, I think that they are sound as a comp. I don't think it's necessarily something that's, it's gimmicky because people aren't expecting it. Obviously, that'll definitely be part of it, but there are plenty, you start looking at a lot of the kind of top level Japanese players where they really are honed in on a weapon like Brush, weapon like Dapples, and you'll see continuous success with those weapons. So if you have those thinkers that are hitting the pose and kind of coming up with comps to build around these ideas, I definitely think that there's no reason why they shouldn't stay, especially in the current meta that we're kind of seeing.
I like that. This is speaking of, we talking a lot about the in the zone, a lot of experimentation there. So there is an interesting composition that in Area Cup, which was also, this weekend, was a very, very, very stacked Area Cup, number 40. There's a few points I want to have here, but one of the things that a Western team in Milky Way thought is his very fascinating double sniper composition. Now, I send a little link to the set itself here, but where does that sort of line potentially meet where it's like you have a player that's a one trick in this Squiffer player? Like, how much could that impact the comp itself? Like, should one tricks like generally more to stay their gun, and even if it's like, makes the comp weird, they're more skilled on it, so they stay? Or is it more like they should be more flexible? Like, like in a case of something like Squiffer, that's kind of like in the middle of the pack power wise. Like, what's your opinion there?
I mean, I think I have a philosophy that's somewhat in line with Reborns when it comes to stuff like this, where as long as you're willing to adapt the way you play and potentially shift a couple weapon picks slightly around, you're able to make really almost anything work to a certain extent. And I think that really kind of shines through with this opponent team that it looks like the Milky Way crew is going up against. Seeing something like Squiffers really, it can be really terrifying if you're going against it at times, especially in a tournament like Area Cup, I'm sure, right? But when it comes to that, like it just all boils down to how you play those specials, right? Like the Squiffer, it can have bubble, right? If you're going to be running that special with the Squiffer, you want to be sure that you're in a position where your pen's probably playing a bit more aggressively. You want the rest of the team to probably be filtering a little bit of space for you. Maybe you're going to play it a little bit more like a stamper, right? Where you're trying to take some off angles and maybe not be as obvious, or maybe you're trying to just absorb all the attention and you're making plays with the rest of your squad and you kind of all just collapse upon the opponent, right? So I think it definitely can work, and I think there's a lot of different ways that it can be applied. Is it going to necessarily always come out on top? Unfortunately, potentially not, because like how we were talking about earlier, if you're a thinker, if you're someone who is able to just work against the other team's comp the best you can by shifting how you choose to play and shifting even your weapon picks in your comp, maybe being the Squiffer player is not going to be the best move if they run like triple ink strike against you, right? You might not be able to have that much fun in the video game in a situation like that.
Yeah. At the same time, because I was like shocked. I can't remember if I was watching. I don't remember if it was Area Cup or if there was. Because sometimes I'll just watch like random top level JP players, and sometimes they'll be scrimming, playing tournaments, solo queue. But there was a Squiffer that I was watching that was super good, and like they were playing like underneath ledges, like where you would imagine like an S Blast or a Slosher or something playing. Like they were just very comfortable, like directly underneath the enemy and like looking for opportunities to pop out. It's kind of like what you're saying about playing kind of as a stamper in some of the roles that they would generally play, like underneath those ledges. So in some ways, especially for myself, with a lot of these newer weapons, maybe don't have too much judgment or expectations of how the weapon should be played. And I think this another kind of way for like top level and these the +2 Sullies that are cracked on the weapon. Like I think there's opportunities for these one tricks and the people that really have stuck to these kind of unconventional weapons to kind of pave the way to show maybe not necessarily how it should be played, but at least give opportunities and ideas and be creative for these top level that maybe potentially have better mechanics but might be interested in playing a Dapples or playing a Squiffer or something, or a mini that at least recently we haven't seen like a ton of, and maybe give them ideas to really be able to push these weapons and make them feel a little bit more comfortable. Because I think that's been my biggest takeaway when watching a lot of these unconventional weapons, is that in a lot of like when you play the game, like you're gonna be very intimate with like the weapon that and the ins and outs of, but as you get off the meta more and more, your understanding of those weapons are going to be less and less. And it was definitely very humbling for me just to see like these really cool creative plays from weapons that I don't really get an opportunity to see all that often. So I think from that experimentation side, again, talking about E-Leader is almost this like long range, like Slayer weapon where super highly mechanically demanding. We talk about things like Stamper being like, one of the most demanding weapons in the game, which still stand by that. But at the same time, like E-Leader is very demanding mechanically and like not as much in movement, although movement is very, very important. But that precision when hitting your shots. So again, during this time, I think looking for those weapons and for people that maybe are looking at breaking into the plus server, or maybe they're at a level, maybe they're +3 and they want to get +2, +1. If you play those unconventional weapons, like definitely get on that content train. Give us that gameplay. Allow us to see the beauty of those weapons that, against all meta and tier list considerations, you're still rocking with.
Also,
so I think there's a lot that we can learn.
Is this the Squiffer you were talking about? Because look at where he's playing right now. Sorry,
oh yeah, I think it totally. I think it was this play, but it's just so crazy that like I'm uncomfortable watching them play Squiffer. No, yeah, I think this set was actually what I was watching.
Players that are fighting an uphill battle genuinely are some like the most creative. Like that Squiffer, literally, just like that Squiffer you saw. It's just they're like, well, we are forced to be flexible. We have to do what we got to do to essentially survive. And if that means they're able to flex in the situation, like there's a player, Healthy Die Food Groups, Blop. That guy is like the living embodiment of that philosophy of, well, if I'm going to one trick this thing, I'm going to make it work wherever I need it. And it all just ties in. Yes, make it work where it's gotta.
Love it. Great. I this mentality of like, if you play a weird gun, make content of being known as that person. We go all into experimenting with that play style, saying, I'm not a Squiffer player, or I'm not Anarchy Nova player. Like, I don't care about no L3. Don't show me no L3. I play Anarchy. That kind of mentality, that kind of a root of branding yourself. It's definitely, there's definitely been like cases like Sully, for example, that excel in that kind of showing. I like that. Now, I do want to have a bit of a special section here where there's a couple Japanese either league, or one is a league, the other is a tournament that's happening right now that is insane. Really, really, really insane, but no one talks about it because it's not airing up. There is a couple of those events I want to talk about here, and it could be a great opportunity to talk about, what Turf War could mean for the community now that the ending is coming up, but also just this league and what we can learn from in general. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that is essentially the Wuti, the Japanese Wuti, and its name is Inkwave. Now, what makes Inkwave really stand out, at least as a format, is it combines the trying to find the same power level and having a static map list per season of Wuti, but it also has that rating system, that power level system, and that flexibility of who can fight who as you climb up the tiers of Sendok Inc. And see if I can we can get a pull up of the website here, just real quick. Yeah. Okay, I'll they'll be pulled up in a second here, but at least the way it works is you have 6 maps, and you play all the modes for that map. And yes, that includes Turf War. Well, I won't do want to get into Turf War here soon, but 6 maps. All of the modes, you start with 1 mode per season. For this reason, for example, it's clams, and after that you have a random stage, but the losing side can counterpick the mode. Now, I do want to just specifically lean into Turf War here for this real quick. It's a mode that if you ask a Western competitive player if they're gonna play Turf competitively, they're gonna say no, because they think of Splatfest, or anything of just, there's no rank system for Turf War, so how could it even be a competitive mode? Like, it's silly. Like, in the last second, the zone axis completely flips, right? What Reborn here, what do you think of Turf War as a competitive mode, and could that be a direction the West takes?
So I will start this by saying I have not played enough Turf War to be able to speak on its merits. Did watch a lot in various JP tournaments and watching it through Nintendo tournaments. I personally am a big fan of it. My only hiccup, I think that we should be playing Turf War competitive. My only hiccup with that, and the reason why right at this moment I would be hesitant on it, is because we don't have an X rank rotation or even just like anarchy of some sort to be able to like practice that. I'm a believer of like being a rank grinder and being the online warrior where I'm just like constantly, just spamming a bunch of games, and not having that competitive outlet. I guess during Splatfest you can do like pro and everything, but not having something continuous makes me a little bit hesitant on pushing it as a competitive mode. That's not me saying that we shouldn't experiment and shouldn't try, because I do think the mode has its merits, but that's always been my kind of hang up on selling it to the community as being this competitive mode. That being said, within the community, we have things like Sendoku. We have enough tournaments that exist within the community where we could totally introduce Turf War, and maybe getting more reps in it and being able to kind of see more analysis from the Western side playing the mode. Maybe it would have me more confident that if Nintendo's not going to push it as a ranked mode, I can still have confidence that it could be something that we can practice and really push ourselves for. But I do like the mode. I don't subscribe to the idea that it's just 30 seconds. Like it could be any mode. You could throw the end of Rainmaker, TC, even for zones, like you can totally just like whiff your specials. Especially with leader, there's an EOTL game during Area Cup where they were down 2v4. Leader hit a crazy shot. They hit two crazy shots. I forgot the first person they picked, but then they picked basically they got two picks and they like completely flipped the momentum of the game where they were holding and were in control, and then the game just completely flipped on that side of things. As a lot of people have said in the community, just kind of reading the feedback as the Turf War conversations inevitably come up, like I do think there's a lot of skills when it comes to painting, when it comes to kind of making push on the map, like making pushes, both from a timing perspective and also from is it worth kind of the risk reward of pushing up in certain scenarios. I think especially in the West, it's super underexplored. I can definitely say for myself, as someone that's put in thousands of hours in the game, I could probably count on maybe two hands, like the total amount of Turf War that I've either played or have really analyzed, like actually analyzed. But from watching, especially with Splatoon 3, the way that like Reflux works, and it having missiles as a kit, and that kind of being one of the, not necessarily a staple, but something that I would see consistently. It made the early part of the game, I think that's always been like kind of the heartburn that I've had in my hesitation outside of it not being a rank mode, is like the early part of the game is annoying. I'm less frustrated about like the fun, exciting team fights that happen at the end of the match. Like to me, that's always been awesome. But it's like having to go through the motions of getting paint all over the ground in those first couple of minutes, to me, has always been that heartburn. But overall, I really like it as a mode. I would totally be down to see it more often. Maybe our tournaments could, I love TOs, but maybe tournaments would be running a little bit faster if we were running 3-minute games consistently. And that would help some of those time zone complaints that people have about tournaments not running, being kind of difficult of being able to stay up on a Wednesday night or Thursday night or random weekday. So I do think that I'm being a little bit jokey, but I think there's definitely a lot of merits to it. Overall, I would say I'm thumbs up on it, but I don't have the reps to be able to warrant saying that, we definitely need it.
Imagine a world. Oh, sorry. No, you go for it.
Oh yeah. Oh no, wait, go first. I'll go on in a second.
Okay. No. I was gonna like make a little bit of a joke, but also like an interesting hypothetical I was thinking about as Reborn was talking through the Turf War debate. Like, imagine if the Nintendo League, right? Like, they make Turf War mandatory. Like, you're playing a set and it's like, I don't know, you have to start with a Turf War and then you do a zones match and then you do another Turf War. Like, it's just something like so far out there from what we have established as a scene that like it just throws everyone really off, and then everyone's like, oh crap, well, we want to win this thing, so we have to like actually figure out Turf War now. And imagine if like SOS is like, hey guys, Turf War night.
Turf War night. It would be really
Imagine
funny.
Turf War only.
I do
Turf
think
War
that
tiebreaker.
there are like specific time slots throughout the week where I think having specifically a Turf War tournament, I think there's a lot of merit to it.
I think I saw a tournament that was like a Turf War tiebreaker. Like their tiebreakers were Turf War.
Oh.
And I don't remember what it was. It's so vague in my memory. I swear that was a thing. But no, what I was going to talk about earlier before I like completely forget. I think it's also like the reason people don't also want to play Turf War is because Turf War is like the foundations to the rank modes. If you know how to play Turf War, your understanding of rank mode goes crazy. It's like, oh, your paint control. Oh, the last 30 seconds of the game are the most important. It's boring the first 2 minutes. I think as people are just kind of like, well, why be boring for 2 minutes when you can go, do whatever you want, like whenever you want, and knock the game out in every other mode in the game. And I think that's probably the big reason why it's so not liked, especially in the Western scene. That's not just a theory.
Yeah, and I think like even with some of the early game stuff, like there was a lot of optimization when I was doing some analysis. And again, I don't know Turf War meta, so any Turf War enthusiasts, please don't come at me. But seeing a lot of like the vanilla reflux with the missile kit, it was really cool seeing like the Turf War veterans. Because I think the team that qualified for Japan for the last World Championships, I think they were like basically like a Turf War team for the most part, and their reflux was so like deliberate with the way they painted at the beginning of the match. Because like obviously you want to build up that early special, get those early missiles, and because even if you're painting in your base, you can shoot out missiles globally and still help your team being stuck in your base. Which is why I think that weapon being a great painter and having missiles is actually like, at least for me, was a super positive for Turf War specifically in this game. But they would paint like broadly their base when the missiles were up, and then once they use the missiles, because of the nerf where like after you use missiles you still have to wait for the special timer to go back down before you can start building it again. During that downtime where you can't build specials, that's when they would like paint like the corners of the turf where like it's not very optimal to paint that stuff because like you're not actually building special very fast, but you need to paint your base completely. There was like these really cool optimizations that as like an analyst, like looking at these matches, I was just super impressed. So I think in some ways, because I think sometimes in the community, especially at the higher levels, there can be a little bit of a kind of inertia going through the motions. That's why I think a lot of the newer weapons and seeing more unique weapons in the meta has gotten people kind of out of that funk and be willing to experiment. I think something like Turf War and just having this completely different new mode. I was hoping with Splatoon 3 we would get a new mode that's like a ranked mode and have a actual 6th mode, I guess, or 5th ranked mode. But because we didn't get that, I think Turf War, I think there would be again a lot of benefits from many different angles.
Optimizations that you're talking about, that I think you're talking about the reflux with optimizations, and I had a conversation about this a while ago, and that players that are really good at the game are really deliberate with every single thing they do, whether it's painting at the corners, pre-shooting this area, this, that. And I think we could really take a note out of that reflexes book of just, if you are deliberate with every single move you take, suddenly your value goes from here to here. It's kind of insane to think about, actually.
Yeah, we've seen that optimization with Cooler. I think especially watching a lot of the JP pens, like they've gone, and we do see it in the West as well, but pen initially started as like this like just painting weapon, and then over time as people have gotten more comfortable, they've started to poke a little bit more and be, a lot more beneficial in fights, and you're not just the Cooler bot. So yeah, any opportunities for us to really get into the weeds and find those optimizations. Again, we want to be a thinker community. That's what we're aiming for.
Yes, sir.
W thinking.
W thinking.
Yeah, it's there's definitely some very real ups and downs to having Turf War potentially be a more competitive mode if Nintendo decides to take that route and say, hey, Turf War is mandatory in this sense. Where it's like, yeah, while the last 30 seconds are weighted way more than the rest of everything else, and there's no ranked mode to properly practice it outside of fan made, community made ranked modes. It does build fundamentals that aren't stressed to the extent of like painting properly. Like, yes, there's spot zones where of course you paint the zone, but then once you have the zone, you don't really need to perfectly paint anything else or pace your aggression based on how you paint or play your life really, really, really hard. Sometimes, of course, you will have to play life, but to the extent of Turf War, where it's like everyone knows about that last 30 flip. Everyone's experienced that last 30 flip dozens of times when you play for, hundreds or thousands of hours. So it could have its own benefits. Yeah, and it looks like Japan does really tap into it. Something I want to talk about as well with Inkwave is the format, because it is that hybrid between, the more structured set times as well as the season-based, map list-based thing of Luti, but also that rating system. And yes, there is like, they try to match teams of similar WP, which is quite literally the same as SP. They do try to match that, but a team that starts at the very bottom can go to the absolute top. And in fact, every team starts at the absolute bottom. Omazen, as someone that, has a lot of experience, I was hearing that, or even like, I don't know if do the rating per se of CCA teams, but as someone that, is in that verse where rating and divs is kind of subjective. It's of course more objective than subjective, but there is that sort of sense to it. What's your opinions on a more a fully objective system like this when it comes to rating versus a one where there's judges and there's just judge panel and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's benefits to both, of course, but I think that like this more objective kind of framing can definitely have a lot more value to it. I'm still kind of like wrapping my mind around everything that's going on here with like League of Waivers, Inkwave, but it's really interesting to see how they kind of go about everything, and even like just they're more, how you're saying it, right? Like they're more objective way to viewing it. I think like a benefit that div systems still do kind of have at times, though, be it sort of your Ludi or your CCA or maybe even a couple other smaller leagues in the scene that they have, is just being able to help provide you a more immediate group of people that are estimated to be around your skill level, and just kind of creating that mini network, or at least potential network that they can have. I definitely see merit to both of these, though.
Interesting. Yeah, it does sound like divs, they do have a greater chance of preventing that immediate, you're not gonna fight FT win round one moment. But yeah, it's like the objectivity and subjectivity do seem like they have their strengths. But something I do actually want to talk about that Inkwave does that's very special is something called the Wave Sound Booth. It's like Wave Sound Booth. It's a special award ceremony they have for things that aren't necessarily related to just the gameplay. Like, for example, there's a reward for the team that has the best logo, the team that has the best name. They try to fill out the Splatoon and not just the literal playing the game, clicking the button sense, which I think is like very valid. But truthfully, as someone that I believe you do art, what's your opinions on these, on like the Wave Sound Booth? And could that be something brought to the Western scene?
I think it's very fun, honestly. If I'm being honest, it's a way to involve teams that maybe aren't always on the top, because a lot of eyes tend to naturally focus on those at the very top of the leaderboards, but giving that focus to those that aren't, that maybe haven't put as many hours or just maybe aren't there yet, is a great way to get them more involved and might even just be more motivated to keep playing afterwards. I think that is a great way to have that community interaction. It'd be really cool to have in the West. It's just like, it's those little things, just like, it's a little things. It really is just a little things, and it just makes all the difference. I think it's awesome. It would be really cool. It would be really cool, actually, yeah, to see that here.
Heck yeah. It's so great. Just like scrolling on something like Blue Sky or something like Twitter, there's so much art, which I love, like the art community, but of course there's a lot of just creativity in general. Like, there's some Splatoon musicians out there. There's graphic designers, like, graphics and like art. They do have some overlap, but of course there's a lot of differences too. there is a lot of creativity, like, and that's not necessarily the same as a player skill. Like, for example, Kyo may not be a better artist than someone who's just starting out with Splatoon, or like vice versa, like that kind of thing. That's a good point that it could be like really, really great for the scene.
Yeah, and I think it's
there's so many artists.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the Splatoon community at large, both from a competitive side and the more casual side. Like I think both diversity celebrated so much, and also just so many like creative, talented players. Trying to remember, I think it was it J Music, like the saxophone player? That was in the community. I forgot what tournament, but I remember that they had like just seeing them perform, and like I don't remember, like I remember playing them in like tournaments and stuff, and like I would just like see them in competitive and like, oh wow, this is like so cool. Or like seeing like your favorite artists and seeing them, can be like super cracked players. And I love a lot of times, especially me being a little bit more of a boomer compared especially to the Splatoon community, I think a lot of value in playing competitive or just being inside the competitive community is to have and celebrate skills that can transfer over to after you compete. Because, let's be real, we're playing a Nintendo game, maybe only a handful of us are making full-time careers out of it, but there's so many skills that you can develop, and probably so, just so much networking and just, again, being able to celebrate all of the talents that people can bring in. And I think especially with SWS, as you were mentioning toward the top of the show, Fufu, and just like the production level on that, and just seeing that like there's people that are like so young in the community with such like impressive skills. Like, yeah, any opportunity to celebrate that, for me, is just super, super cool.
And also, one thing I've learned about the Splatoon community is that they love art. Like I don't blame them when I say that it's if you just look at Splatoon itself is just a whole celebration of art. Let's be real, just look at it. It talks for itself, and it's no wonder it brought such a diverse community with it, because that's what it celebrates: the diversity, the creativity, and it's very lovely to see that reflected in the community. I love it.
Amazing. That's a great point. There's art everywhere you can find it. Now, I do want to pivot here and talk about another really, really amazing Japanese, it's not necessarily a league, but a tournament series rather, and that's the Nawabari Fest. Now, if you know at least a little bit of Japanese, that name is confusing, because Nawabari Fest, it just sounds like Turf War Fest, which just sounds like Splat Fest, but it's not Splat Fest. It's quite different. One thing they do, of course, have in mind is that it is all Turf War, because that's where the fest sort of comes from. But what Nawabari Fest is, it's a seasonal tournament series where there are different tournaments that are laid out into blocks. Like, for example, as you see here, the A block, B, C, D, E, F, G, it goes down all the way down to J. And what these team names are next to these, like, it's A through J, but like, granted, it's a lot of Japanese. Most people here can't read Japanese. That's fine, but I'll try to guide you through. But the A next to the little box right there, that team essentially won that block. And there were 10 tournaments hosted through this summer of A through J, all different Turf War tournaments. And the winners get to go to this final that's happening this weekend on the 23rd. The last two teams, the little 1 and 2 at the bottom, those are the top two from like a sort of redemption bracket, where the teams that did good in the earlier A through J brackets but didn't make it all the way to winning get its last chance. But I do wonder if there's like a bit of comparing and contrasting. Compared to something like CCA finals, like what are some of the format differences, omazen, if you could say like maybe CCA finals, their finals are calculated in this way, or like it's completely different, or it's like the same, like what's the differences there?
Yeah, I guess like as a little bit of a comparison to speak to CCA and what's historically been done, you kind of just have your groups stage, right? And then you have your top 2 or 3 teams, depending on how the just format is going for the year, going to your final bracket segment. And in that, it's typically, single elim, but that's typically how we do our league. But I think more interestingly, a different event we do is the circuit for CCA. And that's going to be undergoing some potential changes that I believe actually just got announced today, ironically enough. But yeah, with a circuit, how we did it at least last year was that we had a whole points leaderboard system, which was very cool. And in that we had the top teams from across all our different qualifier events where they could earn points based on how kind of either far they made it or a couple other factors. By having the most points, you could move on to our finals event. And in that event, you had to go through a modified Swiss where you had I believe a maximum of 5 sets that you could go through. And you had to, within those 5 sets, get at least 3 set wins. And if you failed to do that, you were just out and you couldn't participate in day 2, which was sort of treated like, kind of think of it a little bit like low rank. You have your day 1, that's kind of more of a groups thing. You have your day 2, which is a bit more of a traditional bracket. But yeah, we had our day 2, and it was really cool having a double elim kind of segment. And I believe the team that ended up winning Division 1 that year basically immediately fell down into just like sudden death, right? They lost their first set and they went immediately to losers, and they fought from the very beginning of losers all the way getting back up to grands, doing bracket reset and winning Division 1, which was an insane run. But yeah, it's cool to see how different organizations kind of choose to group their players for sure.
Also, we need to bring more modified Swiss. Y'all's modified Swiss is peak. I know within the Sunset Surge staff, we've talked about possibly implementing some like pretty much the modified Swiss. And it's so cool. It gives a focus to every type of player within the group. And it's like, especially in like lands, which I'm going to, the land where there's more than just the higher level competition, it helps give a spotlight to everyone. And I think that's amazing.
No, I really like your point that you have there on lands in particular too, because I think that a big challenge that lands have, I'm speaking as myself as someone who's either participated or even led a few, but we've had a big issue with trying to give teams enough time to just get the most out of it. Like, do you let everyone move on to a finals bracket stage? Like, how long would a groups go? Should it even be a traditional groups? And I think modified Swiss honestly might be the solution for so much of that, because you still let the teams that aren't necessarily that finals material get a solid amount of games under their belt and also experience. And you also just help ensure that there's high quality matches still happening. Like those teams that are like 2 up right there, they're about to get their potential 3rd win. Well, they're going up against each other. So you get more exciting games out of that. And just everything's a bit more balanced in general. So I completely agree with you there. I really hope that we continue to see more modified Swiss and that it's hopefully adopted on a wider scale.
Absolutely. And it's like the only thing I see it's stopping modified Swiss is, of course, actually having the amount of teams that are needed to see it through. Something like Gridlock that has the 16 teams is able to get through. I think SoCali might have enough participants to possibly do something like that, just in a theoretical sense. And it's also whether if venues have the time and have the teams to do so, would super recommend it. It's such a cool format.
I like that. That's a good point though. Like, there's always that push and to see like what is the best format for my community or my tournament, that kind of thing. Where it's like something like a LAN where it's a lot more rare than all-in events for this kind of game. So that potentially going a route like Swiss, where like, okay, well, maximizing the amount of games matters a lot. So people, build that experience, build that, connections. They have a greater time, and the matches are still pretty even. But then, like for a weekly, it could be something completely different. Where it's like, if every weekly was Swiss, that might take like a while. But like how lands can differ for formats versus like weeklies versus majors, it's really interesting to think about. Here, I do want to pivot to something that is, it's starting to rear its head in a good way. It is the Sendo Q finale, but first the Sendo Q leaderboards. That's what I want to hear about. Where the users and the teams, like everyone is pretty much going to be grinding Sendo Q a lot more as the season is starting to, rear down the teams that are potentially going to be in the finals, get more locked in. No, I just want to check out the leaderboards there.
Let me share it real quick. We're starting from 10 this time instead of 1.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay. I need a drum roll real quick. Yeah, I need some anticipation. I need some kind of like.
It's not gonna come through the mic, but
There we go. Oh wow. Okay, this is interesting. Number 10, Captain Happy. Now I have this. I do have to say, for compared to last week, you're going to be looking at these, but we're gonna have a bit of difference, compared to seeing where they were the last week before players started to really make that push versus now where a lot of teams are starting to come out of the woodworks and be like, okay, it's time to grind. But yeah, number 10 here, we have Captain Happy. I do want to talk about how this one, because it's so interesting, because Happy is someone that we saw, I believe, like at the top, like in top 5 or better last week, and they're still in an absolutely outstanding. Yeah. Oh, third. Yeah, where it's like they are still in an immaculate spot, like 10th out of like over 1,000 is like truly amazing. But as people start to grind more, especially as that finale approaches, Reborn, what is the kind of mentality you notice like out of players when it comes to Sendo Q? Like, do you start to see that push? Do you feel potentially more desperateness with the points? How do you feel about it?
it probably depends on where you are in like the overall status. I know that a lot of times the top teams are like, okay, what kind of pickup am I, if they're not already on an established team, like, okay, what pickup am I going to grind these last couple of days and just win all of my, win like 10 matches in a row, and we're definitely going to qualify. But again, there are those seasonal grinders that are, that really can take in the value, not only of Sendo Q being this big tournament, but more so the culmination of a bunch of games, bunch of sets, bunch of reps to build those skills, build that mastery, and continue to improve. So definitely, depending on the player or the team, you'll see kind of probably a different mentality and a different philosophy around it. I think an interesting thing about Captain Happy specifically is they're another one of those players that that kind of sprung up from like mid-level to top level, and I don't know if they still play Stamper. I haven't actually watched their gameplay in a while, but I remember them just completely dominating me on Stamper, being insane. And like I think that they made their way. I don't know the networking and everything, but I know like they had played in like 8s or scrims or random pickups with like Kyo and everything. So again, there are these players. It feels like a little bit of a drip feed, but there's definitely a lot of players that can go from those like mid levels and really have the opportunity to play with some of the best players. But a player like Captain Happy, I think they're for the most part a bit of a weekly grinder. You see their name pop up a lot, and mechanically just absolutely insane.
Interesting. Really a come-up player that has found those key connections to get those 8s going, and then it sounds like they're improving skyrocketed from there. And that does also mirror their placements here, where like a jump from 66th to 14th to like in the top 10 was in the top 10 for multiple weeks. That is that is quite a solid jump. Like, it doesn't, maybe not numerically seem that as crazy as some other players that are going to be in the top 10, but still the gap from like first to 10 is already crazy in itself. 10 to 50, that's another level. Yeah, going up in here, the number 9 slot we have Miner. Well, talk about what you know about him.
One, they're super chill. Second off, their bucket is nasty. They have a really nasty bucket. They've been on the grind. He's been absolutely on the grind as of recent. Had the luck of meeting him at H-Town recently. Mm-hmm. Also fought them, by the way. It was really, really fun fight. Again, that slosher is crazy. And if they continue that, they will have that +1 access, which I think is honestly deserved.
Yeah, I remember like very early on in the beginning of Splatoon 3. They would stream a lot with tournaments. I can't fully remember. I think they played with like Sto. I don't remember the actual like full teams and everything, but I remember just like randomly tuning into their some of their tournament runs and thinking, and at the time like Machine was meta back when it was like every team played either Splash, some combination of Splash and Machine. But I thought mechanically they were like the most impressive Machine I had ever seen, and one of the like just watching them play, it was super impressive. So yeah, I haven't kept up with them quite as much, but I've definitely seen their name pretty consistently whenever they are participating in tournaments. They're super, at least mechanically, absolutely insane.
Amazing. It sounds like the gameplay is like it was already started out pretty strong, and then here it is like just blossoming here within the top 10. But going to our number 8, looks like we have ourselves. Oh, okay. So this guy didn't make his appearance last week, but now he's here. Omazen, what you know about Gray? What you know about Gray?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a little bit of a Gray fan myself. I know that sometimes people have their opinions about especially some of the EU players in the community, but I think Gray's a really cracked and intelligent player. I think it says for itself in some of the results, of course, they've gotten, but also just how like much knowledge they're constantly sharing with the community. Like Gray, especially now, is just streaming all the time, and just tune into one of the streams that they put on. Like you will get so much information on top level play just out of him. Even if it's just like small comments in between the matches that are played, there's just a lot to take away from that. I think what's really interesting lately about Gray in particular too is sort of the shift away from PXG / snails / the typical Gray Noah pickup into what I believe is pronounced Voie Lactée, the French Milky Way kind of pickup group that's forming now, that we're actually also going to see at Riptide, with Q, Jared, and the team all together. It's going to be really interesting to see how they ultimately play, because I think Gray really complements them well as a fourth to that existing squad, and they're able to just punish so much. I think it also kind of shows itself a little bit with them being able to move forward and survive a bit longer in Area Cup recently too, because of that. And it also goes without saying that just, of course, really great players. And yeah, I'm not gonna keep glazing him forever. We can move on.
It's there. Gray is truly an exceptional player and has been for such a long time. And yeah, well, I tell you, look out for that group when Ridside hits. We're gonna go to number 7 though. What we have here is Tickle, who is I do believe a bucket player. I'm not sure if their profile. I would have to double check that. But a 5th in his own, and SOS win. That's pretty solid stuff. Reborn, what do you typically notice about the weekly winners, like the SOSs, the Triton Cups, the paddling pools, like that kind of skill level where they're maybe not necessarily getting the majors, but they're winning the weeklies? Like, do you think like that's sort of next up group? You think this is the best time for them ever?
Yeah, so I always have this appreciation for the grinders back many decades and a couple of games ago. Before I started playing Splatoon, I was definitely a high schooler that would spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day grinding the game, losing, back when I didn't need sleep to exist. So I always have a lot of respect and a very special place in my heart for anyone that is out there grinding tournaments. I think sometimes there is a divide between like the weekly winners and the top players, but like you were saying, I think putting in the effort now, I think, can definitely pay off. Haven't been able to watch as many weekly tournaments, but I will definitely be checking them out so I can kind of keep tabs on some of these names. So yeah, very, very impressive. And am, I don't know. I think it kind of, there's a lot of talk and totally agree about like all of the bit of gatekeeping that happens around top level and everything, and people having harder times that drip feed into the top level. That feels a little bit more glacially paced than we would hope for in our community. But at the end of the day, if you want to get your name out there, if you want to kind of against everything else, if you want to put yourself in that kind of position, just grinding these weekly open tournaments, you will get there. I don't know specifically Tickle's journey, but I would imagine that they weren't always the weekly winner. I'm sure at some point they had to go through that journey of making Hammerhead in like an SOS would be awesome. Okay, now, oh wow, actually, we're consistently here. Okay, we made Great White, and you slowly build your way up, and then once you get to that point, then you get to kind of rest at the top. But there's a lot of work and effort that goes into that. So, yeah, I think I wish and maybe they do, and they just don't have the visibility, and that's shame on me. But I would love to see a lot of these types of players that are kind of grinding these weeklies. I would love to see more visibility, more content around them for people to follow, because I think that journey can be a little bit more inspirational for a lot of community members that are probably maybe not at the point where they're winning a bunch of weeklies, but probably would be on a similar journey.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very unique skill that there isn't much content about. Like if you were to ask me like, okay, what's someone with like, I don't know, like even 10K subs that whose content is focused on like winning weeklies or getting there, it's like I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't know. So it's definitely a very special skill level that we don't really hear much about. Yeah, we're gonna pivot past that to number 7 there. Going to the number 6 on the leaderboard, we have ourselves here. Oh, okay, another top player makes their appearance here. Now Q. I'll talk a bit about Q here. So, of course, she's been known as that sniper player and has, flexed to some weapons that aren't snipers. Usually it's going to be more that supportive defensive backbone. But, of course, Q, very, very, very aggressive player with a whole host of results to name ever since Splatoon 2. It's just a player that's been at the top for a while. And, seeing her at number 6, very, very, very expected. I would not be surprised as we get closer to the Sendo Q finish date, we see her get into like that, like potentially even higher. Yeah, next is here. We got number 5 with Daiki. Okay, this is a bit of a funny topic here. Fufu, about Vanguard, one of the teams that is maybe not a team. No one knows. I don't even think they themselves know. What do you think about the Raiki here, the sword player on Vanguard?
One, there's some really prominent results there. Obviously, that first place in paddling pool, I think I was second in this one, which is a huge result right there. I'm not familiar in the range of Stamper, but I don't think it takes someone to be familiar in the range of Stamper to see those results and be like, yo, you're kind of cracked on the sticks. I don't know too much about this player, minus what is being shown to me on screen. And from what it looks like, as long as they keep it up, they're looking at that top 10 placement.
Great point. The two-way player with the results clearly speak for themselves, and on a difficult weapon like Stamper 2, sure. Yeah, going into number 4. We got. Oh. Okay, Aaron here from Frutella, one of the teams that have really started to blossom lately, and is still on that up and up. Now, Reborn, Frutella is definitely a team that's like started to make a name itself, especially like with Skyward Series 2-0ing Milky Way. Just, what do you think of Frutella as a team here?
So for EU, I don't like. If Frutella is a team that I need to really take time to analyze a lot more of their matches. I was definitely impressed with watching their set with Milky Way. I was watching it from the Milky Way POV, but names that you will see in those consistent, eights that you'll watch your favorite top level Splatoon streamer, and a lot of these names will crop up. But I think, at least for the Frutella name as a whole, I definitely think over time they've kind of had a similar vibe to Moonlight, where I think their name was there for a while and they're going to get good placings, and now I think they've kind of been recently pushing into, okay, let's take the tournament. Let's put our, now we are not only a threat, but like, you're not a threat to beat teams, but to actually like take tournaments. So another team that I should know more about them, but definitely excited to keep watching, especially because I always have a hard time with teams that will potentially just disband a little bit. But Frutella's been a name that has existed for a while, so now it's like, okay, now I'm invested. Now I actually want to understand their play style, understand what gets them their results.
Yeah, that's a good point. Frutella is like, it's one of those. It's composed of like those grinder type players, right? The ones where there's. I remember looking at like Crownie's results, and there are so many Triton Cups there. It is insane. Same there, I'm pretty sure, with Aaron. So it seems like a group of grinders, but as you brought up, they're a group that's potentially here to stay. So they could get even better as we go on. So now we're going to start breaching into not necessarily the final podiums, but at least the current podiums. And there could be some volatility here, but there are going to be some household names that if you follow competitive regularly, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But number 3 here, Sam Akato on FT Win. Of course, this player is a phenomenal sword player, has so many crazy results, first in the qualifiers, but also almost hitting that top 8 in the Splat World Series finals, which was pretty much how how good the West did in that tournament. And second to go to Tropical Tuesdays, which is so many great results as an FT Win member. I'm actually curious about this from a collegiate perspective, omazen. For teams like FT Win, for teams like Starburst, how much do you hear collegiate players like generally talk about these players that are known for their competitive experience, but maybe not necessarily appealing as much to the college type end, or even like maybe the casual end?
Yeah, I guess typically what we see the most often in the collegiate sphere is players really looking more to the, I guess what I'd call the slightly more popular top level teams, right? That have like a lot more public faces. So I would argue that's something obviously more like Moonlight, like in the CCA sphere. You always have people like looking up to them and like wanting to maybe try to pick up what they're doing and apply that to their own gameplay. I believe we've also had a couple of the current Moonlight members actually participate in the CCA at various points as well. Nolan actually was a player pre-league, I think. And then Basil participated in one of our league seasons. So you still have people like them that occasionally actually do show up themselves in CCA, which is really fascinating. Like, obviously, or not even obviously, this actually isn't that like well known of information. Fox from Artifice, who was like one of those top level teams, appeared in Splat World's not Splat World Series, but in the last Sendo Q finale. They actually started at CCA. Like, their big comp introduction was CCA, and he's actually the very first collegiate player to be fully collegiate homegrown that has become a plus player and has also qualified for like a top level event like that. So just stuff like that's really cool. And it's really helped a lot with a lot of the larger collegiate scene in showing that this is what you can do. Like, your friend from the other college, right? Your own college literally just did this. Like, this is actually within your reach. It's not this, like, there's a lot of work that goes into it. Don't get me wrong. And Fox is an extremely dedicated, extremely intelligent player. But it is achievable, I guess, is like the main takeaway, right? And I think that it is definitely worthwhile for players, regardless of skill level, to look at people like Sam or Keo or Basil. and learn from them. Like, you don't have to necessarily apply every single thing you're seeing, but take notes and try to do what you can to grow.
Love that. Even if it sounds like Moon Knight is the team that, you know, at the collegiate level people talk about, there still can absolutely be, you know, players that become high level, become top level. Like you're talking about Fox, for example, you know, getting into plus that start with the collegiate experience. Even if some people may think, well, it's a collegiate league, so it's not that competitive. Hey, there's some players that have like getting in the plus. 99% of the community isn't doing that. And that is something that's something that should be celebrated. But yeah, we're gonna get into the top two here. The top two. First, Kyo-chan, the player that was previously number one, that actually had a peak of over 1,700 stand-up power. Right now they have 1662, which is absolutely phenomenal in itself. But household name here. I do remember Fufu. You were talking about how like a player with like a team with a really known storyline, maybe potentially colliding with a team with another really known storyline, that would get the viewers really excited. What's the perception? Do you notice like when someone like Kyo is here?
Kyo is usually the ringing the bell of, oh crap, it's gonna get real. It's about to get real. I feel like that is what Kyo's presence does in a tournament. It's like shit's gonna go down. That's just how it is. Kyo has obviously been in the scene for years. It's like they have taken majors, they've taken major tournaments. They're nothing new. FT win is nothing new. And I feel like Kyo's still dominating top of the leaderboard. It's also saying we gotta lock him. We gotta settle. We gotta dethrone Kyo, actually. And I think we can use that benchmark as a motivator to try and take the top. And the fact that they are second place right now is saying that something is happening in that first place where someone did dethrone Kyo. Dethrone the board. We gotta lock in, get the competition going. Kyo's an amazing player. This is not a dog on Kyo. This is a let's use it as a form of motivation because they are really talented at what they do.
Almost like a LeBron of the Splatoon community, at least the Western Splatoon community, where it's like, dang, this player has been at the top for so long. It's still probably going to be at the top. You know, someone take him down. Someone knock him a peg or two. But you know, like to maybe potentially, yeah.
Oh, a little nod to Kyo, because I know we talk a lot about the top players not giving opportunities of as many opportunities to kind of up and coming players. But I think Kyo is definitely one of those people, whether it be like actually playing with people or giving advice through like so much like streaming that he does. I think Kyo is one of those players that, you know, definitely, you know, give criticism where needed, but definitely give credit where it's due for the people that are, you know, investing in the community and trying to, you know, help build up different names. You know, players can only do so much, and I've been really impressed specifically with what Kyo's been doing.
It's amazing, almost like a sage-like presence there. Almost, and that kind of makes you think of like how you stated how Moonlight seems to be like for the average CCA player, where it's like they really respect that player. Like it sounds like Basil and it was Basil and Nolan that were
that's
like
right.
at the American League, which is that I gotta say though, I'm shocked at that. I'm flabbergasted by that. By the way, that's super cool. But yeah, these sage-like players, you know, they seem to be at the top. So you know, more people should be like that. But number one of the Senate Q ladder as of August 21st is going to be Jared, hitting that 1,700 marker, that amazing 1,700 marker that we talked about. Now, Jared is a player that, you know, Jared has pretty much been going around as long as Q, where has been a higher top level player since Splatoon 2, especially like that late end where it's just result after result after result after result, hit the ground running in Splatoon 3 and just, you know, like whenever Jared plays, you're gonna expect top level gameplay out of him. That is really respectable in itself. And you know, this is a player that's gonna be a part of Lacte, gonna be showing up to Riptide, so you know, it'll be great. It'll truly be great.
Bro, it's Mexican,
really
so I have to do the obligatory. Oh,
I know,
go. That's literally it. It was just me being like, well, they're Mexican. It's everywhere. I have to do the obligatory Mexico número uno from a Mexican. Let me be clear. All right, go for it.
I was just going to say that Jared recently, especially with a lot of the teams that they've been playing on, has been pushing that like more aggressive support style. I think Jared a lot of times is kind of known as like a Slayer, very aggressive with VDS or dualies running in, but has found themselves on a lot of teams with very talented Slayers in their own right. Kind of that up and coming, the old guard of the community are getting a little bit older, a little bit slower. They can find a lot of talent and a lot of value in their brain as well. Obviously, Jared still has insane mechanics, number one on the entire community leaderboard. But
Yeah.
but it's been really impressive to see them push the extents of support. And I think if you are a support player, as someone that plays a lot of Splash myself, Jared is a great resource and a great tool to really understand how to continue to push past the ideas of, just paying for special, just being the safe player, because at that top level, you need to min-max those roles. So it's been really cool to see Jared kind of move into that position.
Amazing point. Jared, truly a role model for so many supports out there. And I also, before we go into the team section, I just got to go a little vouch to Jared, like based on that point where it's like, this guy's a thinker. We talked about how Pika and Shida earlier, those two are thinkers, but Jared is a player that is very, very willingly able to say on Twitter, even if he's rage baiting, which sometimes he is, sometimes he's not, he's willing to say, I don't think this option that people are running is actually that good. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong, but hey, clearly you got to be able to think at least a little bit out of the box. You really got to be able to think, is this actually getting me value, or is there something else better out there? You got to be willing to be able to answer that question if you want to get to the top of that Syndicate ladder. But now, speaking of the ladder here, we're also going to talk about the teams. Now, the user ladder, of course, is very, very important. It shows where the individual teams are at, but the teams just as important, in fact, actually arguably more important, because these determine who gets into the Syndicate finale that's going to be happening later this month, or later next month. This month? One of the months. But starting off here, here we go at the very top. Lacte with 1,700 team rating. That is, can we just talk about this collectively here? 114 better rating than the team who is in second place. And the team who is in second place is phenomenal. But 114 higher. How do you even get to that level?
Yeah, I know a lot of times they'll play like a Sendoku set and they get like plus like 0.1 points. I know the grind at the top can be slow, so yeah, very impressive accruing.
How much were they playing?
Yeah, I want to see too. Just like,
oh no.
I'd imagine some of the tournaments probably can get those numbers a little bit up, but the other part of it is, if you lose, you're probably dropping a ton when you're that far up, So yeah, just again, the consistency, super, super, super impressive.
Wow, amazing! They're amazing. Next up, with number 2, we do have. I do believe this was previously Pathway. All these members were on Pathway before, but the group has broken up as of now. But hey, this is a group that is on the verge of getting into the Splat World Series finale here. Omazen, with the pacing of people getting better, with the increased hunger of the community in general, you see potentially this 4 as a group that could go all the way and truly become a top pickup, or maybe not quite yet.
I mean, just on a surface level, I definitely think that this is a very strong team and definitely could achieve a lot. We've also been seeing just a really strong push, especially the past several months with EU in particular as well. And this being a largely, I believe, if not completely EU team, is definitely going to be kind of a plus to just all that momentum, right? And what I kind of typically tend to see the most with a lot of these EU teams in particular is that they're just a lot more aggressive, and they kind of like throw a lot of curveballs at you that I think that are a bit more infrequent on the NA side of the Western Splatoon scene. So that's something that I definitely give them props for. Like, definitely having strategies in line with all that definitely help them get to the top, or at least, the second place podium spot, right? And I just hope to see stuff like that continue. And ideally, these teams and this group in particular finds good success.
I love it, love it. EU can have those curveballs. Group could potentially be one of them with that, junior plus sometimes a Fizzy Karma, usually Karma Deco. It's cool. But yeah, third here, I'm at least gonna pace through at least these a little bit quicker here. But third, we do have Empty Win, one of the household names of competitive for years upon years now. Whenever you see Kyo, Bursty, Biscuit, it's like, oh boy. And of course, now they have Sam as their new fourth, and Sam, absolute outstanding player. As we saw, was third on the Sunuki ladder. You knock it there easily. Fourth here, this is actually a pretty interesting group story-wise here. Goss, Soja, or Jordan, Noah, or you, with Raiki here. Now, I actually did get baited from this. I got baited from this. I saw a tweet from the Vanguard Twitter saying that this is the new Vanguard, but it's not. They just have been playing together a lot together. I got baited from it. I was kind of mad. I was like, dude, what? Is it really not? Is Vanguard still dead? But yeah, it's very humorous just to hear little jokes like they make like that, but also the Bucket Sword duo is just something that's gonna last forever. Probably we've seen Bucket duo since like 2023. It's still going strong in 2025, and yeah, could we see here with that. But next, I want to talk about a pretty fun group that I do want to ask Fufu you about. Here at number 5, we have Healthy Diet Food Groups. Now, they almost made the Splat World Series. It was, just at the cusp of making it there. But when it comes to these groups with, very unique playstyle, but also with a very cool storyline, Fufu, how have you seen the viewers you've casted to just like respond to a group like this?
I haven't quite gotten the chance to actually cast. I know it's been a long time since I've casted Healthy Diet Food Groups. It's been ages, so I don't have a necessary answer on that. However, I think like they're flying under a lot of people's radars when I don't think they should. If I'm being honest, that is a team of thinkers. We're talking about thinkers, that is a team of thinkers right there. I'm gonna leave it at that because these guys are thinkers and they're kind of correct. They're correct at the game. So I have a lot of high hopes for them coming up into the finale here. So I'm hoping. I think they also qualified last time. They usually qualify. I always see these guys on the leaderboards. They'll be fine.
Yeah. Love it here. Next at number 6. This is a group that we talked to a smidge about earlier in Frutella with that number 6 slot. Great. Just gonna say here, great chance of them making the finals with it's how much up and how much grinding they do there. It's almost, you could arguably say it's like just 100% a shoe, and it's just gonna be a no matter what. But I don't know if shoe is the right word. But anyway, number 7. Here we have a group that I don't believe was in the top 12 last time. I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly. Paris Saint Goufus. I said that wrong. French speakers, I'm sorry. But a lot of these faces to me are actually some of the newer ones. Have you guys seen any of these players in tournaments before, anything like that?
Let me put my eyes.
Seen names, but I haven't been able to like watch their gameplay.
Sleeper agents.
I mean, this is just like such a fun example, right? Where it's like this is a team where it's like maybe not players we necessarily heard the most about. Like maybe we have, maybe we haven't. But it's like when the iron is so hot, teams are just gonna shoot up that maybe weren't there before. And this could be a great example here with PSG. But number 8, this is a team we've seen for at least a few months now in Blanks. Very, very, very solid group. I remember we talked about Blanks when it came to it was like a major that I believe it was Super Jump that we were actually doing some predictions for, and had Blanks. We had Blanks one of the teams in question. It was like, how good will they really do? But still going strong here with a really solid number 8 placing. I'll be happy to see them in the Senuki finale. After that, though, number 9 here, we have another group I've seen for at least a few months now in Parasail. I do wonder on Reborn, is Parasail a team you've like heard about here? I think I've seen them in the last NDQ finale.
They're definitely teams and players that I've played against back when I competed a little bit. I think they're a group that have been either formally on a team or at least in groups that have played together for a while. And again, one of those like Moonlight type stories where they have that consistency, they play together, and they've shown just consistent placings. And I think Sindo Q finals is a great opportunity for them to, even if it's not them trying to take the tournament, definitely find some upsets against a lot of these top teams. So again, I really love these stories of people that have kind of gone through that rising to that story. I'm pretty sure just over the course of, I'm sure they played outside of Splatoon 3, but at least having known them and been able to loosely follow their journey throughout Splatoon 3, just really impressive. Just, teams sticking together, teams and players like working and, getting to that point where, yes, maybe they're not winning tournaments consistently, but you see their name often. And for something like this, where there's, 12 teams qualifying for the Sindoku major, like I definitely kind of almost expect them either to qualify or be right there. So yeah, really awesome story.
Loves that. Sounds like a group that's been going for a fair bit here. That's great. It kind of reminds me of Healthy Diet in a way, where it's like Healthy Diet, they've been a thing forever. Maybe not to that extent as is Paracel, but love seeing groups just like that are able to keep their synergy going like that. Number 10, though, we have Heavy Metal. This is a group that has also been going for a good amount of months, I believe. But I do recognize a couple of names here in DZ, as well as Kama, like Blaster player and Sword player, respectively. Those are pretty awesome weapons to see. Of course, Stanford, mechanically one of the hardest weapons in the game, but also just a fan favorite. So many players just love to see it. Pretty cool.
A lot of tournaments.
Yeah.
Got up there. Look at the grind. Look at that grind on the tournaments. The points grind is crazy, but also respect.
So beautiful.
Oh, hey, that's with a lot of these teams. They're grinding. Love to see.
Yeah. I still just getting in the qualifier too. Doing the qualifier too is also something that shows you trust your mates. Gotta say here, next we have the number 11 pick up here with there's some actually really interesting names here. Fantar, KitKat, Poe, and Acer. Fantar has been a very great bucket for a while, currently +1. Alongside KitKat on the pen, was great player in himself in +2. Poe is a player that I believe was just shy of the top 10 from the as the time taking their points from everybody and like that. So really great mid player, and Acer is in +2. So really great talent here. +1s, +2s are on the board. But number 12, omazen. It's them. It's Moonlight. Is this a team that you think is gonna stand number 12, or are they just they're just warming up? What you feel right there?
I mean, I think Moonlight's been a bit on their up and up arc lately. I think that's fair to say. They've had some strong wins and just good showings overall, especially at LANs lately. Like Moonlight in particular, when it comes to North American LANs, has always been one of those teams that you're always looking out for, and is going to have some sort of good run, and probably a very fun run to watch too. So between them, like winning MomoCon, also grabbing that victory over at I'm blanking on the name right now, the Canada LAN that happened.
Get on my level.
Gommel, yeah, that's right. Just that success they've been able to see so far, I think, has definitely helped a lot. And even though they're at the bottom of this 12 at the moment. I don't know if that will necessarily stay the case. I could see them going up slightly as the season, kind of goes towards an end. But I definitely think that they're a very strong team. They've grown a lot. They've refined themselves a lot. And they could definitely still go far, despite the potentially lower seeding.
Love it. I love it.
I think Moonlight's just one of those teams that's like the encapsulation of everything to love in the Splatoon community. Just have stuck together, been this consistent entity, they've always kind of been a threat, but now they have gotten to the point where they're like the threat. Seeing players, I've been watching a lot of Shadowwind recently, and like their just mechanical skill has really blossomed as of late. They play fun, interesting comps. It's just like everything about them is just like it's so hot. Like they're fan favorites for a reason. So I'm glad to see them on the list. I would imagine they probably crack around top 5 at least, just to safely make it into this. But love us some Moonlight.
Love it. Truly, like Moonlight has been here for a while and has pretty much been exponential when it comes to being a household name. Like has been a household name for a while, but it's really starting to become like, yeah, Moonlight, yeah, that's that group. That's my goats right there. But going to we're gonna go from the online section here to like a little bit of offline, as well as some upcoming events that are still online, but at least talking about here in the top left here, Gridlock pairing up with Collision to create what could potentially be one of the craziest lands of the year in Gridlock still, but yeah, in Gridlock. Now, one of the crazy things about this tournament is the prize pool. The base prize pool is starting at 1K, 1,001 grand in a community where everyone clowns, potentially the prize pool, the winnings, the earnings of players. Like, have you ever played Splatoon in your life with $5 on the line? Omazen, when it comes to yeah.
It took me out. I forgot about that tweet. Oh yes, the 5 cents eater. We need more money, please. Lock it so we can. If everyone is not at that Nintendo event and we lose money, I'm gonna blame all of you.
Every single viewer, even the EU ones, you guys should have flown over. Come on now. At least when it comes to adding prize pools versus not having prize pools, I'm pretty sure Control Inc. Delete, that's a tournament that like has prize pools at times, but compared to like CCA, which I'm imagining doesn't have any because it's a collegiate league, so like kind of What's your what do you notice changes depending on like if there's a prize pool or not when it comes to like tournaments or leagues like that?
I mean, obviously, money's always going to attract more people. I think that's very fair to say about pretty much every single thing in life, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to Splatoon tournaments, I definitely think it's good for the scene. Like in Smash tourneys, if you have like a local or something along the lines of that, right, that doesn't have at least some sort of prize pool, even if it's a bit on the smaller side, you're probably not going to see as many competitors than if you did have it. And I think the same thing is very true for Splatoon 2 as well, just for the sake of growing the scene too. You want people to be able to work towards something and want to get something. And at least on the CCA side of things, we actually, for Circuit, we actually did have a prize pool. I don't believe we ever formally announced what that was publicly, but teams were given, I believe, a like actual money prize following the event, which is very cool. Being able to be a collegiate player, you go through the motions, you do your VOD reviewing, you do your weekly matches, you do your circuit qualifiers, stuff like that, depending on the season. Being able to earn money if you do pull out that win is really huge. In the past, there's also been a lot of other prizes as well. This past season, we handed out trophies to some of the top winning teams of the upper divisions. So that was a really cool thing to just do as an organization for the players. And then when it comes to Control Inc. Delete, The goal behind that, as a TO of that event, is we're trying to like create an event that's sort of in line with SOS while providing a like this is what you're working towards. It's not just a weekly, it's like this is a bi-weekly tournament roughly that turns into an invitational where if you win, well, now you qualify for the invitational. There's a wild card team that also qualifies per event that would go to the invitational. And we currently have a $200 minimum prize for said invitational that we plan on growing and elaborating upon more in the future. TBD, details to be determined, right? But I think that stuff like this, even if it's a little bit on the smaller side as a prize pool, is very important just for the sake of the scene.
Mm-hmm. And like, I want to add on to that. It's like,
Please don't do this.
I'm crying.
Thankfully, Gridlock's a little bit higher than 1250, but yeah,
like 250 per player type. You know, we're making moves. We're getting out of the depths with this one. And like, I want to mention, Gridlock actually merging with Collision is huge. Seeing Splatoon at more majors is such a huge step. It's just so much more exposure for the scene. And if that means adding a prize pool, like prize pools do so much, as Omazen was saying. Look, take Fry Basket. That is now not, it's in the depths, thrown out back, shot out back. We're not going to talk about that. But attracted a lot of good players because they had a prize pool that, like, yeah, we're going to milk the $20 out of this tournament. If we're going to play a tournament, might as well get $20 out of it. Give you lunch. And anyways, that's beyond the point. Lands with majors, prize money, players, profit. We need more of them. I hope to see more of them in the future. And I think the sprawling of lands is going to help with that a lot. There's been so many lands. There's been so many lands. Go to your lands. Go to your local lands, or I blow you.
Yeah. Yeah. And great point. It does really feel like the prize pooling, and especially like, you know, a more bountiful prize pool, like a light 1K, so a light grand, 250. It does help, you know, bring out some players. You know, at least I took a look at least a little bit at the bracket here. Some of the players that signed up, you have Zero, who is, you know, one of like the veterans for Splatoon 3, but has a ton of results to his day trying to defend this region. Also, Balloon, who is a player I do believe was in +3. I don't know if they're currently in +3 now, but you know, is in, of course, like a hitting plus even one time or even in and out. I'm just not sure, but really solid player there. And of course, Henlo, who is he's been known for a while as that wiper player, but you know, is also has some very deep pockets. Like, you know, has played supports before. I've seen wiper handle on different guns, like besides just wiper when it comes to the Slayer end as well. But it does attract those players like that. It does, like, of course, anyone is just gonna be happy to have a lot of money in their pockets that they're playing in a great Splatoon event. After that, I do want to talk about the next tour here. We have a bit of a double header on Saturday with both Barnacle Bash, but also Squid Junction. With Barnacle Bash being at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and then Squid Junction being at 7 p.m. EST. Now, I do wonder, Reborn, do you have a feeling that some teams might double dip? Like, they'll go for Barnacle Bash in the afternoon and then Squid Junction in the evening, or does this give like some nice... Oh yeah,
the timing looks like it's I'm sure I was looking at some of the teams that have been signed up for these tournaments, and there's definitely already super high quality tournaments, but watching a lot of top player streams, sometimes they'll going into the weekend, they'll be like kind of talking to each other in the morning. It's like, oh, do you want to play in this tournament? There's money on the line. So you'll see a lot of random signups where, you know, might be one or two insane teams, which makes for a really awesome tournament. But by the time the actual tournament is going on, you'll see 4, 5, 6 teams. So yeah, I would imagine we see a lot of talent, and I think especially for Squid Junction, I think this is the kind of final one that they're running. So I think just out of respect, Squid Junction's always been one of those tournaments that at least for my time in Splatoon has kind of been one of those mainstays with SOS. So Personally, it's a little sad, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of great talent to make that final one a great one. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. They
Hoping
gotta go
so.
all in.
I do actually I want to point out something a bit funny about Squid Junction before we head into controlling delete here, which is a tournament that omazen helps run. There's something very I found very humorous, but also cool in a way, was that on Ikanakama, which is essentially the Sendo Inc. Japan, it's like Sendo Inc. Comma Japan, right? But Squid Junction was actually advertised on there to try and get potentially a few Japanese teams in.
That's
Now,
awesome.
granted, the timing, it may not be the best. It's kind of like Western teams signing up for Area Cup, where it's like they could. It's 7 a.m. in the morning, but they could. It's a bit similar to that for Japan, but would be cool to see it. Like some JP team sign up. Like maybe if Baby Wobster sees $300 on the side, it's like, ooh, I could get free couple dinners. But I do want to talk about here of course the last tournament here that was propped up in Control Inc. Delete. Now, almost you have been like helping run this or running. You've been running this tournament series for a bit now. What have you noticed about like the reception, the sort of audience for it? Like, has it been like on the open up or?
Yeah, I guess what's been interesting is our largest group of players that like wants to play in this and tries to play in it the best they can is actually EU, despite it being a Friday evening time block. So we have people like starting at like, I don't know, around 12 a.m. their time, playing until like 3 a.m. their time. And
Wow.
it's really funny to see. It's also a little concerning because it's like, wait, why are you choosing this one? And I think it has to do a little bit with probably the money prize attached to it. And typically on Friday nights, the only other tournaments you're seeing are stuff like FDAU or tournaments that have skill ceilings. So they probably see like, oh, it's the one open level tourney tonight. Let's go ahead and just shoot our shot and see what happens. But what's also been interesting is our last one, which we ran roughly 2 weeks ago now, we actually had a JP team show up. And it culminated in a finals match between Gray's Voie Lactée team with the Milky Way crew and the JP team, like nuclear bomb versus nuclear bomb colliding into each other. It was a really fascinating match to watch because although like Gray ultimately with his pickup was able to kind of win and just grab that qualifier spot, they had a lot of like interesting different moments throughout that match. And I kind of like bringing this back to like your point about Squid Junction appearing on one of the JP Splatoon sites. I think that both because of the Splat World Series and just the various tournament opportunities that exist out there, we're going to continue to see a bit more of a global scene than we're traditionally used to. Like we've seen a lot of new like faces pop up with EU that like a lot of people don't really know that well. And like for a lot of people, maybe it felt like Gray popped out of nowhere, right? And U Leader popped out of nowhere. And obviously they've both been with us in the spotlight for a bit of time now, but I think we're going to probably see a lot of JP teams start to interact with people like Gray, like Moonlight, FT Win, and so on and so forth moving into the future.
That would be truly great to see them. I'm glad that regions where even the time zone isn't necessarily like the best for them. Like JP, it's like very difficult to play at that roughly that time, but also EU's by the sounds of it too. I'm glad that just across regions, players, they see like a good map mode, they see a prize pool, they respect the TO and the ores, and it's like, yeah, I want to play this. That's cool. Yeah, I hear that. I do. Last thing, at least when it comes to the upcoming tour series, of course, the Sendo Q finale. Now, of course, we looked at some of the teams on the top users earlier, and I'm so for this because it's at a time where things are so hungry. like sure, maybe Gray plus Gray's friends, like Royal Octave or something like that. They might just take the horns, I think, without taking a game, but this could also be. This is one of the best times for an upset. I'm feeling. What do you guys think? Who do you think will take the W each? It's like Fufu and then Omazen and Reborn.
It's hard to tell right now. It looks like the Milky Way squad, like on paper, it looks like they should be dominating. We don't know until the tournament hits, because it could very well be what we expect NBA, or what most would expect, that we'll see a sweep, because it's still in the books. Even, they're good for a reason, but also to see some talent get, at least, all I ask is, can we get close? If we can get close,
yeah,
I will be satisfied, if I'm being honest. If it's not a sweep, even better. Like those are my thoughts on it.
It would be cool to see like a closer set here. Reborn, what about you? What do you think? What team you think will get the W? And like, do you think it will be necessarily close, or do you think it'll just be like a sweep?
I'm gonna be honest. I do think that I think it'll be pretty close. I think the three obvious front runners is the Gray Jared squad, FT Win, and honestly, to me, I've been really impressed by Moonlight. I think they've proven themselves as they are a legitimate threat, and I think I wouldn't say that they've won a tournament that would be to this caliber. They've won, lands and a lot of tournaments with great teams in it, but I think a team like Moonlight this would be such like a breakout performance, but something that's well within their grasp of being able to do. So I love, like, I think Kyo and FT Win, I think, are my personal favorites. Even if maybe they're not favored, I just really love that team. But I think the storylines for me is I want to see Moonlight win one of those big tournaments. I think the members of the team, as well as Pro Chara, I don't know if Chara always gets the credit that is deserved. I think Chara, I don't know exactly going on. Chara's their coach, for people that do not know. But I just hearing Chara talk about it is so invested in that team, putting in effort, both for the team as well as the team being a representation of what he would want from the community of going through the avenues of making teams, building up that talent, and being able to work your way through that. There's not like a shortcut or anything. It's just work really hard. Chara himself as a player has been someone that, when I was first in the scene toward the end of Splatoon 2, like, yes, was a very good player, but wasn't really a competitor. Now, if Chara wanted to be on a team, Chara could totally be one of those players. So that whole culmination, I think I think everyone in the broader community just wants to see Moonlight win a big tournament. The other big story for me personally, because I just haven't, as we were going through a lot of EU players and teams, I haven't been able to see them quite as much. So I'm really excited to see Frutella. Big shout out to Fantar in squad. I think they're like a fully French team, but I've done some VOD reviews for Fantar. Absolutely insane bucket. And that whole team is so good. So I think there's going to be a lot of great storylines. I still think that we're probably going to be seeing top 4 be kind of the usual suspects. But I'm really hoping. I think we'll get a lot of upsets throughout, and I really want to see Moonlight. They need to finish the story.
And they almost took one off of FT Win, so the possibility is not zero.
Many game 5s, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes. Get the game 5s, gra!
It would be amazing to see for sure. All right. Omazen, what's your vouch? Like, who you think will get the W here?
Yeah, glad you asked. And my take is maybe a bit weirder, but I think the team that I think we're gonna see have the craziest run, and potentially even win it all, in my opinion, is gonna be the Goss, Solja, Noah, and Reiki group. 2 of those players were with Gray last Sendo Q season on Snails. And I think that group has just consistently shown themselves to be a really strong chunk of individuals. All of them are very strong players themselves. Like Raiki's an insane Splatana Stamper player that just really owns all 3 variants of the weapon and can shift between them relatively easily. You have Jordan, aka Soldier, who can just absolutely kill it with Bucket. And then Noah's an insane pen player, and Goss goes without saying with the shooters. So I think like if anyone's going to beat what's currently cooking with Milky Way, I think it's going to be those 4 personally, not just because of like, oh, they're it's like a revenge story, or like a quote unquote revenge story, right? Where it's like, oh, well, we have a new squad and we're going to go up against you. But I think they definitely are taking most of my attention right now, I would say.
It totally.
I love that pick too, because I've only seen Gray playing with Jordan, so them being on different teams for this event would be I don't know. My stocks are super high on Jordan, so yeah, no, awesome pick, Oma. Totally agree.
Thank you.
Love it. All right, around the board, that's gonna wrap up the main topics we covered. There's a lot of amazing things, like quite a lot of depth as we covered here. You know, starting off, we did cover the NA Splatoon League, the trailer, and some expectations. There's so many formats, so many routes it could go, and it really was timed in a way where the NA scene is hungry. I really feel like we're going to take this opportunity and go the mile with it. After that, we did talk about a few of the recent tournaments in the zone. We talked about some of the increased experimentation in the West. You know, we're seeing some pretty unique comps from the card with the double slider team, and some pretty nice upsets from comps that are really unique. After that, we talked about Area Cup, which had a very solid Milky Way run in it, when winning their set 2 on stream, and then I did believe they went on to get top 16, which that was a bigger Area Cup, so that's very impressive in itself. After that, we did talk about Now Body Fest and Inkwave, which are 2 incredible Splatoon tournaments that are happening in Japan. Now Body being a Turf War qualifier into a finale that's happening this weekend, and Inkwave essentially being the Wootsy of Japan. We talked about a few of the plus players that are coming up, and just the sort of trend of more plus suggests, and it's been in a while, like so many players getting suggested in, as well as the current status queue leaderboards for the users and the teams. And then finally, we talked about for the upcoming events being Gridlock, an amazing Splatoon land with a 1K prize by truly insane numbers. The final Squid Junction that they are going all out for, it's going to be an absolute bash, and then the Barnacle Bash earlier. Speaking of bash, 400 prize pool combined with those 2 events, like 100 and 300. So hey, want to get some moolah, during those tournaments, and then of course these SQ finale that's going to be happening soon. But yeah, I want to hear from Reborn and omazen and Fufu. Where can we find each of y'all? Like, what's your socials? Where the thoughts happening from? We talked about some thinking, so.
I am reborn_NA on YouTube, Twitch, everything. I will be making some new videos on YouTube soon, so I look forward to that. I hopefully will get back to streaming a little bit more consistently, but sometimes life happens. But yeah, that's about it. I talk sometimes. I'm old.
Right, Reborn_NA. Omazen, what about you?
All right. Y'all can find me on Blue Sky at omazen at broadcastbeep.com. You can also find me on Twitter at omazen_monkey. And sometimes I stream on Twitch. I'm kind of in like a little bit of a hiatus mode with comp, as life has gotten a little bit lifey for me right now, but I'm planning on still cooking up a few things and whatnot. And yeah, definitely check out what's also happening at the CCA, by the way, too. We have quite a few fun events occurring over the next month or so, and our league, or circuit actually, is going to be taking place this fall. So stay tuned for details if you're interested in the collegiate sphere of Splatoon.
Love it, love it. You go,
You
you
guys
go.
can find me. Oh, okay. I got it. You guys can find me at SplatFufu. Where is it? Right here. You guys can find me at SplatFufu on Blue Sky, Twitter, or Twitch. I should really start streaming soon. I swear I'll start streaming in the next season, guys. X Rank Grind. But of course, for commentary, art, and all of the above, I will be commentating Squid Junction this weekend for the first block. So do catch me there. And those going to Riptide, I have a trading card. Find me. I will give you one. And stickers.
Awesome. Yeah. It just there's great things happening. Great things happening for pretty much all three. It's amazing. Like Reborn, like I see your analysis sheets. They're very, very in depth and they're a great time. Almost saying, of course, like helping with two orcs is amazing, as well as Beep as well. And Fufu, yeah, big commentary thing. So oh my gosh, Squid Junction and Riptides. For me, I'm ping Puppy Patreon on every social, everything. If there's a social, I do it. I make YouTube videos, make Twitch streams. But the most relevant thing right now is tomorrow, I'm going to be hosting some 8s. We talked about 8s as a form of improvement for pretty much every level of competitive in the West. I'm going to be hosting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to join in, go to my card. You can find my card on my Blue Sky. With that, though, that's going to wrap up Splat Chat episode 13. Amazing things talked about today, and the Splatoon community is just going to keep getting better and better. Make sure to be on the lookout, especially for the NA League. Bye-bye! Everyone say bye. Everyone say